You can't do that. You can't start it like that.
Why? Nobody will ever see what I just done.
Yeah, that's the point, because I'm cracking out here laughing. And
I think you're just happy to see me, dude. I think you're just happy to see me.
Yeah.
It's been a while,
I have to
you
say,
know?
Yeah.
I listened to your 4-hour EOS Dawn recap. Damn it.
Yeah, I mean, but wasn't it great?
It was very good, but it was 4 hours. Well, just shy of 4 hours.
No, but think about it this way.
Well,
If something's good, wouldn't you want more of it?
if you guys haven't checked out the EOS Dawn recap by Max and Will, go check it out. They geek out on 10 scale there. Will actually ran. It was actually a very good podcast. They break down the run of Orlowski and many of the incidents that came out of that. But before we do that, you know what, Max? I think it's time to drop that intro. We got a lot to talk about.
Nitro is the glory, but e-buggy pays the bills. Welcome to the No Name RC podcast. Get ready for some serious bench racing. But be warned, we speak our minds, express our thoughts, and sometimes things can get a little rowdy.
Hate, and he just was influenced by the hate coming from the left, the hate coming from the right. And let's get back to more club racing and less of this racing.
It's hard not to be arrogant when you're always right. You know?
See what I mean? That's exactly why people call you arrogant, Max.
You may not agree with everything we say, but it's definitely worth a listen.
And our pick, can you stop whatever you're doing?
Join your host, Lefty the Great, with co-hosts and guests as they get together to chat RC.
Hey, after that race that I watched this morning, I have to talk about it.
There we go. $100 right here, $100 throw. Oh no! I like this.
Yes, indeed. Nitro's the glory, but e-buggy pays the bills. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to show number 309. That's right, 309 of the No Name RC podcast. I'm your host, Keenan White, aka Lefty the Great. Or to my good friends, Lefty the Great Disappointment. Over to my virtual right, left is the professor of everything, MQ, Arrogant Max. I'm sure he's been called a lot worse as well recently because he's been, doing what he always does, the pisser off of nations. Mr. Maximus Mortimus. What's up, Maxie?
I'm good. Today is kind of like, I looked at my schedule yesterday and asked my girlfriend, do we have anything tomorrow? And she was like, no. So I was like, what better to do than use the whole day to record some podcasts? So
yes.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about what we've been getting into here shortly before as we get on. But before we do that, we'd like to say a big shout out and a special thank you to J Concepts, who is the presenting and the new title sponsor of the No Name RC podcast for 2025. A big shout out to Jason, Allison, and everybody out there at J Concepts for their support. As this comes out, I think it's gonna be Monday. We just dropped 3 podcasts last week about the ENats. I just dropped one. As I record this, it's Friday. It should be dropped now or dropping. I had an interview with Brock Champion, I had an interview with Aiden Horn, and I did a great recap with Maddie G on the ENats race. Also, a big shout out to our premium sponsors. They are Hitec RCD, Sidewinder Fuels, Latera Racing, Invisible Speed, ML Toys, Side Piece Racing, and our other sponsors are Hot Race Tires, Elite RC Productions, RC Project, Mayako, Techno RC, Beach RC, Racecraft USA, and Clinic RC. I will say this, we have a few spots left on this yearly sponsorship, so if you're a company looking to get on board, hit us up. We'll work something out for you. A big thank you to all those companies that have been supporting us. We only have a few spots left on the yearly long-term campaigns, but we do have lots of spots open for the short-term campaigns. So if you're a small RC company looking to get full exposure like some of these big companies on this podcast for a brief period of time, let us know. Hit us up and we'll work something out for you because we got to keep these bills paid. A big shout out to our official drivers, David Runafalk, Robert Battier, Alexander Hagberg, Matty G, Pecco, even in Hotman, who's at Desert Classic, and Mason Fuller, who raced last weekend at the FTC race at the Nitro compound. And a big shout out to our patrons of the No Name RC podcast. We greatly appreciate that. I am home for the next 3 months. I'm going to put some more time into the patron only pods. You have been getting early access as well as the YouTube members. If you don't want to shuffle through all the BS on Facebook sometimes or for your RC news, I do post a lot in the Patreon links and stuff that I like, or races that might be on. And all funds from the Patreon and YouTube members go to help paying these bills as well. So thank you to everybody. So special shout outs, a big shout out to one of my good friends, Axel Owen, who celebrated his birthday a few days ago. Well, about a week and a half ago. A good friend of mine. I'm not sure if he's going to DNC, but Axel and I we've been to a few races together. Eric Morton, happy birthday. Max Kramer, as of today. Chris Shop, Bill Lister, Mike Agar, Adrian Gibson, I know Adrian, Christian Strom, Alexander Andrade over there in SoCal, Carlos Augusto Prado Goncalves, I believe he's Portuguese, Tony Edwards, Brian Bix, Zach Arsenault, Corey Craig, Luis Garcia, a long time I haven't seen Luis, he lives here, Ross Weber, Wyatt Klein, Ashley Duncan, Eddie Zilla, Nick Hansen, Hupo Honago celebrated a birthday, Masami Hirosaka, I think that's his birthday, or might be one of his, he has multiple Facebook thingy-majingies. Creed, Natalie, Anthony Bell, Mark Stiles, Elliot Boots celebrated a birthday, Jim Campbell, Jason Morrow, Happy's Ben Dillmore, Tori Snow, Cesar Galagos, Crystal Rogers, Jonathan Reeves, I wonder if that's Big Chicken or Little Chicken, Brandon Schimmel, quite a few birthdays. Happy birthday to everybody. If you're celebrating a birthday coming up, happy birthday to you. Be safe. Enjoy it. And thank you for all the support. Also, a quick shout out, 2 bits of social media that's been catching my eye lately. I don't know about you, but definitely a big shout out to RC Racing TV and their quick RC news shorts that they've been doing. I really like them. I also listened to their hour-long podcast with Bruno Coelho the other day. It was very good. And also to Ryan Stiles Harris, I really liked his last 2 videos. He did a little clip on Facebook about RC. And like Ryan Stiles Harris is a very deep thinker, very emotional person in his videos. And he kind of sums up how I feel about RC sometimes too in those words. So that was very good. And then I just watched his video about the Florida RC Championships, had their first round at Sundancers. And his first time doing Nitro Truck, he was running a Techno 2.2. And it's a good after vlog. Like, he doesn't vlog during the race, he vlogs after, and he sits there and gives his thoughts. And I think that's great content. And well done to Ryan. He always makes great content, but I like that he's back full into it, making content like that. You know what I mean, Maxie?
I do exactly know what you mean.
All right. Well, that's enough jibber jabber about that. Thank you to all the companies and everybody that supports us. We can't do this without you. Big shout out to the NNRC squad around the world. We greatly appreciate that. And like I said, this is brought to you by J Concepts. We greatly appreciate J Concepts for all their support in 2025. Alrighty, so now time for our J Concepts catch up. Max, let's start with you. You've been really busy because you've been in school, and even our conversations have been few and far between. This is only our second show of 2025, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the first one I did just when I got back to Finland from our trip with my girlfriend, and then then I've done one with Will. Yeah, so we haven't really got to record much. I don't know. This winter time is always like beginning of like the new year is always very busy. But then
you got school going on, so school is keeping you very busy, and of course, being a young adult and of course, being a environmental activist that you are, vegan environmental activist / anarchist. Yeah. So but you're back home. You're back in the forest, living
I'm
like
back
the
in the
gnomes. Like the Smurfs. I was teasing today. You'd be Anarchy Smurf, even though the Smurfs are Swedish and not Finnish. But yeah, it's good to chat with you. We've been talking a lot in our groups because we have some WhatsApp groups with Will and Ty, and Ty's actually at Desert Classic, so I'm interested to see how he's been doing. And like I said, it was a really good interview with you and Will. Will started to come into his own as
I
a
noticed it too.
co-host, which is good. He's starting to talk more, so that's good, and that's exactly what I wanted him as. He's now known as the 10th scale chairman, by the way.
Yeah, and his
So
blogs are great. So if I don't know how many views they have, but I don't think a lot of people
yeah, you
have
should
seen
go
them yet.
check out his vlogs.
Yeah, because I watched it and I was like, "Oh, let me check this out." It's actually good. Like actually, like
It's
I
very
was
good.
into it. Yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised because I don't think he's been doing them for a long time. So
It's not easy to travel and race and vlog and all that type of stuff.
yeah,
So I
exactly.
appreciate it. I know I do quite a lot of traveling and I never vlog. You just forget.
Yeah,
You're just busy.
yeah, exactly. 'Cause that's what I was thinking. Because he's racing at these races. Well, he's actually like very like he got surprising amount of content even though he was racing. Because I know how hectic those EOS days can be. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely go check out this vlog too. That was
Go check
actually
it out. They're on the NNRC YouTube. The point is we want to get it going there and then hopefully he can transfer over to his YouTube. And go
Yep.
check out Will. Thank you for all your support. All right. Anything else to add before I move into what I've been up to? Because I have been traveling.
Not really. I have to be honest that I have kind of zoned out of RC. I mean, I've been following the races. Like I watch TITC, I watch all the races, but I don't know. I've been kind of like the
Real
world
life,
goes
man.
around. Yeah,
Real
real
life.
life's been catching up to me.
Yeah, you've been kind of geeking out on TITC lately, like on road in period.
Yeah, yeah.
So
On road is like very easy to geek out on because there's just so many cars, there's new stuff all the time. So you can just look at that. You don't have to like build storylines that you watch out. And
right,
then also Red RC does
a very
really,
good
really
job.
good coverage.
Very good job.
Whereas a lot of the H scale races, like you barely see anything from the race. Sure, Circus did a very good job for Montpellier, but and then again, there was no video of the racing, so it was kind of like
Oh, hark!
the only
There
part
was,
of it.
there was, there was. Awesome. Speaking of TITC, I did talk to JQ. I actually listened to his live the other day on Invisible Speed. He talked about it. JQ made quite the splash there on the on-road world, and that's great. He is off to DNC Sunday with Petco, and he said that he will come on. We haven't had JQ on her for a while, but he said he's going to be coming on maybe once a month, or once a quarter. We'll see. It's up to JQ. But we're happy to have him back. I am. We're gonna do a DNC recap. We might even do a TITC separate recap because I really want to know what's been going on. And to be honest, JQ's been up to a lot of stuff, so I need to go see what he's gonna do. And then we have to have a good old argument about his Facebook actions once again. But yeah, I wish him all the luck. We look forward to that. And we have a Montpellier GP recap as well coming up, but it'll be shorter. We're gonna record that. We're going to record that separately. We also have a DNC preview show coming up. We're going to do that with Roach. And I'm getting a little bit sick right now. Depends on how I feel coming up next Wednesday. If I don't get, like you guys can hear, I'm wheezing more than usual and I'm stuffed up. So I might do a DNC warm-up live party. So it should be interesting. That might be Wednesday night. Europeans will be asleep. My Americans will be up. But yes, I have not been traveling for the last 2 weeks. I've been home. No, yeah, 2 weeks now, I would say. I got home. No, I'm lying. I've been home just over 10 days. So it was a very busy January, February for me. I flew out just near the end of January to America. Flew into Fort Lauderdale. Danny and I drove immediately up to Jacksonville, picked up Gene, and then Savannah to pick up Patrick, who was going to the Beast of the East at the World of RC facility in Lucama, North Carolina. We went there last year, so this was a very unique race. It's 10 scale and 8 scale inside of a building. They have a actually very nice size track. It's a very good 10 scale track. It actually can race 8 scale on there, but I wouldn't want to race on there all the time if it was 8 scale, if that makes any sense. But they have a very big, very nice outdoor 8 scale track. But this race is about 10 scale and 8 scale on the same weekend. It has a BCD East Championship in Sportsman, Intermediate, and Pro. Unfortunately, we got up there, like the entire staff of the building was sick, most of the staff. So they were, even the owner. So we didn't see them till like the last day. So we made our way up there. We set up, and these are one of those regional races. They're in the southeast. It gets contestants. I mean, there was my boy P Word and Peter Margot were there from the northeast. Gets a lot of people from Virginia. I met Anthony, Mr. 5 Laps. He's awesome. And his buddy Chris, who we call, I think his name Chris, but I call him Sasquatch. This guy has a lot of hair and he's tall. Like he has a big bushy beard and like a big, yeah. But awesome guys from the Virginia fame Wolf. I was teasing him. Anthony wanted to race me. So how this race works is basically you have to run Nitro Buggy, E-Buggy, and 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive count. They do have mini Truggy, they have short course, they have E-Truggy, but they don't count, right? So if you want to be the Sportsman, Intermediate, or Nitro, or Pro BCD East, you have to run 3 of those classes. It can be 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, E-Buggy. It can be 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, any of those combination of classes. You can run all 4 and they'll take your best 3 entries. So it's a great concept. And in the pro class, it does not attract like top pros. It did have Brendan Schimmel there last year. At least had some Brendan Schimmel, but Schimmel didn't even run E-Buggy, or I think Schimmel just ran 10 scale. But it's a great race for these young racers in the area to come. They get to race against some fast talent, and then they get the full-fledged media production where they get to do interviews and all that type of stuff, which is important. And this is our second time going up there, and I want to say a big thank you to Chad, the owner of WORC, who believes in us and wants to make this race big and brings us up there to do the coverage, and all the people up there that I meet. I've been up there 2 times now, and I see a lot of these people from the southeast, so I get to know them, and you get to see a lot of these young racers really shine because they don't really have the pressure of being in a big race. They can run in the pro class, and they do pretty well. Mad Madelon kicked ass. She kicked ass in like E-Buggy, Nitro Buggy. I think she won both of them. And all you see is just, I wish I had the picture. I'll bring it up while I talk about it. She kicked ass, and all you see is this little girl, Mad Madelon, with all these grown ass men around her. Like, you know what I mean? Just this young 13-year-old girl just whipped these guys' asses out there. And it's good to see because I've watched that young girl get better every race we go to. And not just her, a lot of these young racers. And you watch them, and every time you come to another race, they're taller or their voice is changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, man, I was here 6 months ago, a year, you was here. Now you're up here, and it's been a pleasure over the last 2 years to see this. But she is one of those racers. She's been very good. Her family and her put in a lot of work to her race program. Even her interviews have gotten better, and they've become really good friends of ours, and she's very good. Is she the most talented girl out there or race out there? No. Is she a Malin Carson who was immediately talented and at that age, kicking ass and stuff like that? I don't think so. But she is very talented and she works very hard. So maybe
I do have to say that isn't she now winning isn't she now winning intermediate races like at SIT?
She has not won. I don't think she's won at a big intermediate level, and that's where she should be at these big national level races like PMB and.
But I'm pretty sure
she should be an intermediate for now.
Yeah, but I think she podium. I think she
may have podium, but I think she should win it. But she has definitely improved. Her, Wilson Colwart, she wasn't there, but Wilson Colwart, Adrian Ridgway, all these young racers that I've watched racing the last 2 years, they're getting better, right? And it's good to see.
But I remember like a year or 2 ago, she was like getting podiums at Sportsman, maybe taking a win at Sportsman, and she's now like topping intermediate. So I think like that's pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah, because like a lot of these guys who sort of had their goal of going pro at some point, even they really haven't won in intermediate that much. Like winning intermediate is not that easy.
Not
I mean,
easy.
JQ didn't do it when he went to AMS.
He did not. He
So
did not.
so that's kind of like, I think if she can win an intermediate, I think that's like, and I'm pretty sure she's gonna do that this year at some point.
Yeah, yep. Also, I would say that she needs to travel out west. She needs to go to a DNC, Silver State, a nationals.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I know that her family puts in a lot of work, but it was a great event. Well done to all the winners. But until you go there, well, you've been to the Southeast, until you go there and see the community, RC community in the Southeast, it's mostly 1/8 scale, but up there they do run a lot of 10 scale. And it's a nice facility. It's got everything there inside when you want. It's like it's decent. I enjoy going up there. We enjoy our time up there. It's a nice little area. We discover something new every time we go up there. And I want to say a big shout out to my assistant Levi, who hung out with me the entire weekend. And he's a good kid. He did that last year as well. So it's fun. You know, we go to these places, Max, and people always will say something about the podcast. They listen to the podcast. They said this. They'll tell me how much you piss them off. Oh, no. They'll be like, oh, Max is a hoot. It's 50-50. Or so it's good. It's good stuff. We went up there. The elite crew, they love us. We had a good time. We enjoyed being up there. Congratulations to all the winners. And by the way, Bad Batty actually won the sportsman. No, I'm mistaken. She won the intermediate Triple Crown last year, and this year she won the pro. And she beat some regionally fast top guys to do that. So very good race. I enjoyed it. If you're on the cusp of maybe going to a race, I think it's going to be around the same time next year. Check it out. Then so after that race, that Sunday night, we left it. We went, got showers, packed our bags, and Danny and I headed back down to Lake City in the minivan. We had to pack everything, and then we was back on the road. I got home. I drove straight through. Got home at 4:30 in the morning. Woke up around 9:30, and we were back on the road at 2, going to Wisconsin for the INS. That was an 18-hour drive. We actually stayed at a hotel, and then we spent the night. And then we got up at 6 and did the last leg of the drive to Milwaukee. Trackside, beautiful place. I've talked about Trackside quite a lot on the other podcasts, but a beautiful track. I want to say a big shout out and thank you to all the people up there at Trackside that made us welcome. Big shout out to LW4, Larry Wright IV. He's a young man I've met back at PNB, and we've become really good friends. Jerry Kleinbaugh, I met LW3, which is the third. It's a cool place, Max. It's like Jason Renner wrapped it up. Quintessential Midwest winter 10 scale racing. You could go across this building a million times and never know that there's 180 to 200 people packed in there doing RC car stuff. It's crazy. It's got all these little nooks and crannies, like little storage. So that's where also Paul Lemieux has his Gravity RC stuff. So he has an office up there. Big special pit areas, a speakeasy place called the L that you have to become a member of, and a hobby shop that caters to just racers. They have an oval track, a dirt track. It was some good racing. I definitely enjoyed my time up there. I enjoyed the weather. I enjoyed the hospitality by the racers up there. I was bought cheese curds, which I enjoyed. It's and you go to different states, things are different. They're big on like smash burgers up there. Like, so you got a hamburger and you smash it. Never seen that before. And then they call this custard. Oh, you gotta get some custard. It's fucking ice cream. Like, it's more milky ice cream. I'm like, this is ice cream, guys. They're like, no, but it's custard. So apparently in Milwaukee, they're really proud of their beer Wisconsin and their dairy. But I'm probably getting this wrong, but they call custard ice cream. Or maybe there's a difference. Maybe somebody can let me know what the difference in custard and ice cream is in the comments under. And don't forget to hit that sub, like, and notification button. So good trip up to INS with some great racing, emotional racing, 10 scale racing. So basically what J Concepts has done is brought Elite in so it's similar to what RCGP done, right? So Elite is a production team putting on the race. So they have Lance as RD, and what J Concepts wanted it to be uniform completely through the whole series. So they wanted the same RD, same production, everything throughout the 5 races. And it was interesting. Lance did a very good job. He got the races done. People enjoyed it. He was fair. He didn't show no favoritism, and he did a good job. Danny did a great job of the coverage. The crew there at trackside, like amazing facility. It's clean, organized. They know their track is good. Like everybody doing their job there. It's good. It's a good place to go. I had a lot of fun. It was some good racing. If you want to find out all about the ENats racing, you go check out. There's 3 podcasts dedicated to that. So it was good. Anyway, after that race, we slept till about 4. We ripped grass. Whole ass Lance drove the entire trip back, 18 hours. Spent the night. Then Danny and I had to go down to Fort Lauderdale, and then I spent the night. And I was home Wednesday. So I've been home. I had to do some recording when I was home. As you guys can see, I've been working on the studio as well. I'm still unpacking a lot of my stuff. A lot of stuff to go through. You don't realize how much shit you have until you move. So I'm still doing my studio. You can see my MST10. You can see my Erlen Holland bobblehead that the guys from the UK bought me at the Worlds. That's my RC boat, Hagberg. So the studio is coming around. We're making some changes. I'm fixing up my apartment. So I've been busy with that as well as with my kids, doing little things. And yeah, it's just, I'm taking some I'll be home for the next 3 months. I go back for North Georgia shootout, and then I go to Portugal, and I might come back to the States. So yeah, just taking this time over the next 3 months to get everything organized, get moved into my new place, get my studio set up. I also did another podcast. Check it out, everybody. The Power Wheels podcast. I'm dabbling in that industry with my buddy Alan Placer. I have my daughter has a Power Wheels. We've been doing that. We're going to set to modify it. The goal would be to get her to a drag race this year sometime, to go have some fun. So check that out, Power Wheels podcast. If you're a dad with kids with Power Wheels, check it out. I know Max is like, what the hell? I heard you talking about this with Will. So basically what it is ride on electric vehicles. I don't know if you have these type of things in Finland, but as a kid.
I've seen them, yeah.
Okay, so these are ride on vehicles. And Alan Placer, who's a racer, has ML Toys, which is the biggest company that makes hop-ups for them. But he's more of a basher type of hop-up guy, but he's getting into the drag, like to the racing side. So yeah, interesting stuff. I'm really enjoying dabbling into this. My daughter's enjoying driving around her Power Wheels, and we're gonna make it faster. And yeah, I thank Alan and ML Toys for coming on as a sponsor of this podcast as well. So lots of stuff. Coolest thing I saw on my trip. Coolest thing I saw.
Yeah, I mean, if I got one like as a kid, I would be fucking thrilled. So.
Oh yeah, but I was talking about my next topic before we move on. The coolest thing I saw of my entire trip.
Oh,
sorry, I missed it.
I thought the Power Wheel was the coolest thing.
The Power Wheels was cool. My daughter has this little pink dune buggy. It's good. We had to put it together. My buddy and I, Joe, put it together. I had to get shipped from the States, sir. It was. Thank you, Alan Placer. That's all I got to say about that. The coolest thing I saw on my trip. I've traveled a lot of miles over America and on roads and all this type of stuff. So I'm always looking for crazy things, natural things. Like I still have yet to see an alligator walking on the road, like in Florida. I've seen a dead one on the side of the road. But I've seen them on the side of the road, but in the water. This has nothing to do with an alligator, by the way. So Tuesday before I was leaving, after we got back from Wisconsin, Danny and I went early in the morning to get a coffee into Lake City, into the town of Lake City. So he was driving from Lance to South. He lives kind of on the outskirts of Lake City. Not the outskirts, but not in the main city. We're driving on this road. I've never seen one before, but I was told that there's a nest around there. There's like American bald eagles, like the national bird of America. So I see an adolescent one swoop down. Danny goes, Lefty, look. And neither of us had our cameras out, right? Neither of us had our phones ready. We're driving on the road. We're doing the speed limit or less. And this thing swoops down from the trees. Wee, wee, wee. Like ever so majestically. Right in front of us. Picks a fucking squirrel up that's out getting his breakfast for the morning. And then becomes breakfast. It happened so fast. I was just like, that's how fast it happened. I was like, Danny, I can't believe I just saw that. That was one of the coolest things I ever saw. And it wasn't a full grown one. It was like an adolescent one, and it was still training. But that thing swooped on there, picked that up, and phew, went back up in the trees. It was cool. Very cool. Good trip to the USA. Good trip. Good trip. Not for the squirrel. It was a bad day for the squirrel.
Yeah.
I can imagine if we would have took that video and posted it up, someone would be like, somebody should save the squirrel. Please let me know how. When I grow wings and fly, I can save that squirrel. It's like when somebody getting attacked by a shark. Someone help him. What can you do? Nothing. So yeah. Anyway, enough jibber jabber about that. That's what we've been up to. I'm sorry I had to go on a long tangent about that. All right, Max. Up next is our high-tech news brought to you by Hitec RC. Looking for top-tier performance and reliability in your RC setup? Hitec RC has you covered with industry-leading chargers and service for both surface and air applications. Whether you're bashing, racing, or taking to the skies, Hitec's advanced technology delivers precision, power, and durability when you need it most. From high-torque servos to smart, efficient charging solutions, trust Hitec to keep you in control. Hitec, powering passion, elevating performance. Visit hitecrc.com today. In the notes, you heard about this on the No Name RC podcast. We are working on a coupon code you can buy directly from Hitec now. Thank you, Hitec, for all their support. All right, Max, I will let you go ahead because this is your specialty. I see you have the MRO Racing signing a new designer. Go ahead, take it over.
Yeah. So MRO, some of you may know this brand from the car. The car with the very laid down shock design and so on. And as the ones who watch this on video, you'll see that they have signed a new designer, Gerd Stringer. So if you don't know who this guy is, where have you been? But to explain, he's the man behind the Durango concept. He's the man that worked for Serpent with Jörn Neumann for I don't know how many years, but there was I think he was initially with Serpent, then he created Durango. Um, well, he created the designs and then sold the designs to Durango, remained the main designer. Then when Durango went bust, he moved over to Serpent with Jörn Neumann. So that's basically his history, recent history. I don't know before that because I'm pretty sure he's been in RC way before I was even born. So I bet he's been doing some stuff even before them. But we discussed this with Will on the EOS podcast that MRO was going to come up with some news. So yeah, I think this is exactly something they need because I don't doubt for a second that the previous design things they've had, like the overall layout of the car or like the mechanical principles of the car wouldn't be good. I think that's. I mean, I don't doubt that because like I think his name is David, the one who initially designed the concept. So David something. I should have checked that before. But he sort of had the initial idea. But the issue with a lot of these designers who just design an RC car, they don't really have like knowledge of RC setup on a high level. So you could look at a guy like JQ. Like very few within RC have that level of knowledge, and I would argue even Gerd doesn't have that level of knowledge. But Gerd has quite a bit of that knowledge, and I think having someone like him on board, there's a big chance that they actually are going to be able to make this work well on track. And like, for example, Agama, it's a perfect example that they've had a designer that no doubt knows how to design a cantilever system or knows mechanic principles, but they clearly have some lacking of understanding on how an RC car works on track. And I think the results in Agama show that. But I think someone like Gerd, he very well could sort of get MRO over that, step. Even Automatics is one. He was some rocket designer or something, aerospace designer. What the hell does he know about RC cars? Automatics was a great car when it came out, but it didn't really handle that well. Like the design was amazing, but it didn't handle well on track. And I think it's a great business move for MRO and I hope it works out. It remains to be seen, but very interesting piece of news, I think. You're muted, Keenan, so unmute yourself.
You can also look at it as a point that he's also been a designer for many failed brands. Well, Durango
Yeah.
failed.
Yeah, but
Serpent
the
is
car
not in
scene
the best spot.
Yeah, but
Well, anyway.
I think they failed more so because of the business structure.
Okay.
Like
So
Durango
just to let you
failed.
guys know that this RC news is going to be very 10 scale touring car related because Max is geeking out on it. He has his TITC Max favorite cars up next. RC Maker. I watched JQ's report on this. He liked the Axon. You like the RC Maker. We've talked about this on the podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'll go through these briefly. So, and to be honest, it like I don't know why, but the news have been very 10 scale focused. So yeah,
I would say that's due to we had ETS, which was very big.
yeah,
We had a Worlds that was 2 months to 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and TITC is a huge race. Like I didn't realize how big it was till this past weekend. By the way, that's the TITC race over in Thailand. By the way, everybody, it was a big touring car race. Even JQ went.
yeah. Okay, so here we are, and we can see the car. So obviously, this is the most interesting thing about um the RC Maker SB1, I think it's called. Um, Shocks all the way down. I feel like this is the design that we are going to see next. So, um, I think this is called reciprocating damper. So it goes up and down, and the other option is rotary damper. So it goes like around. And Automatics is obviously the other, and every other car uses these type of dampers. Um, the difference between this car is that they use cantilevers. So you have this link here that connects to a bell crank, and then this bell crank works as a cantilever to the shock. And I think I don't know if the design is going to be like this. Are the shocks going to be placed like this? Perhaps, perhaps not. Who knows? But I feel like this is going to be sort of the next step in development of touring cars. Because at the end of the day, these cars go so fast that you're going to want to have the weight as low as possible. Like, it's going to be the only reasonable way of going forwards. And I was extremely excited to see that Hara was driving this car because Hara has a big following, and I think people are gonna get very. They're gonna get much more, press by having Hara drive the car, and I think that is good because it's small brand. They're trying to do something new. People are not gonna pick up on it immediately. Um, I don't know how this car actually will work on track because at the end of the day, the shock layout is just for weight bias or weight balance, like how high do you have the weight center of gravity type of stuff. And the other parts of geometry are still the dominating factor. So we'll see how it goes. But this is, to me, it's like a better concept. They just have to iron it out so that it works. Um, I'll bring up next the Schumacher because this is obviously the car that won, and this is like the most traditional car out there. Um, if you watch JQ's video about this, that's going to be really informative. So first, look at the Schumacher. If you have if you looked at what the pictures saw from the first car, the SB1, you could see that, for example, the upper arms, they were significantly shorter, whereas here with the Schumacher, they're significantly longer. Otherwise, like the electronics layout and all that is pretty much identical. So difference is down to flex, uh, weight bias, well, center of gravity rather, and then the geometry of the suspension. So longer A arms, longer upper arms. Um, I can't say for sure if the hub design is different. Most likely, it's not very different. Um, but then the weight bias difference is the shock. So on the SP1, you had the shocks laid down here by the arm, and judging how the geometry looks like, it's very likely that the geometry is as if the shocks were quite stood up, which means more direct feel, less progressive damping. Whereas here, the Schumacher, it's incredibly laid down just to get the weight balance lower. And perhaps you do want very progressive damping that can be beneficial, but at the same time, if you start to raise the shocks up, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to also raise the center of mass. Whereas with the cantilever shocks, you can tune the cantilever to get the desired damping feel without affecting the center of gravity. So that's why I think this is sort of a design of the, well, obviously this is the best design currently because it's winning every single race on the hands of Orlowski. But at the same time, I do feel like this design has its limits. There, at some point, there is no way to go forwards, and I think geometry-wise and the sort of basic design-wise, the Schumacher currently is the best car. It is easily the best car out there, just by pure results, and I think it's also the best car out there driving wise from the feedback I've heard within the touring market. Now, I think this has the lowest ceiling of all the designs, be it automatics, be it SP1. Even compared to X-Ray, I think this has a lower ceiling. But the fact is, they have everything much, much better put together currently. Um, so yeah, that's sort of my analysis of the touring car market currently, and I think
So
it's much more interesting than I thought it was when I saw that there's 10 cars out there, but there's actually an incredible amount of differences between the cars when it comes to geometry, although on the first look they look the same.
So what you're trying to say is basically that the Schumacher car is going to have a complete over like to get on, because that RC Maker car looks great, with the shocks horizontally like it is and all that stuff. So what you're saying is Schumacher is basically going to have to follow that at some point or something similar.
Yeah, I mean, we see this in Formula One all the time. So you see, for example, Red Bull and Ferrari this year.
Mm.
They Red Bull says they have 99% new car, and they won the championship last year. McLaren was the best car by the end of the year, and they still have a very new concept. So with each concept you do, there's sort of a set ceiling for that concept. So you can make a concept, you make the shocks as short as possible so that they still work like shocks, and you make the setup as low center of gravity as possible so that it still works. You make the car light as possible, all that stuff, and then you fine tune the geometry, get the best you can. But there always will be a ceiling that you're going to reach, and that happens with every setup because like there
That
just
well, that
is like
happens with
this.
lack of money to be innovative. You know what I mean? So you just kind of generate.
Partly, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's. You had
I,
the
I wanna
Axon
I
car
wanna
here.
go yeah, I
Yeah,
wanna
because
go through the Axon because JQ, because I have a very differing opinion of this in
make it
JQ.
fast. Don't talk about it for 30 minutes like JQ did.
Yeah, I won't. So, I will first tackle the obvious thing. So, with the Schumacher, the shocks are in front of the arm, on the front, and behind the arm on the rear. The Axon, like the Mugen, like the X-Ray, and I assume like the Infinity, they have placed the shocks um, behind the arm on the front and in front of the arm on the rear. So more centralized mass. this is again one of the reasons why I said Schumacher have a limit, because in theory, more centralized mass will generate better reactiveness to the car, and it will naturally change directions faster. Now, Schumacher's setup is so good that they don't necessarily need that right now. But the other brands, if they get their setup as good, and then they have this natural weight bias advantage, then they will be better, if you get what I mean. So that's first sort of a sign of how I feel like there's going to be an improvement. Now, here's the issue, though. As you saw on the Schumacher, let me take a picture of the rear end because this is very comparable. As you saw the Schumacher, the shocks were very far out here. A similar thing to the front. They were quite far out on the arm on the Schumacher. But the Axon, there's a limit on how far, or this is the same story with X-Ray or Mugen. There's a limit of how far you can take these out before you start hitting the steering bell crank. So there is sort of a lack of space here, and you have to compromise on the geometry of the suspension or then the geometry of the steering to get the desired results. I believe there's enough space to make this work, so I don't think it's a inevitable issue. But I know for a fact that on the X-ray, they have huge issues with this because their steering bell crank goes all the way down here on the bottom of the arm. So they cannot put their front shocks as out on the arm as they would like. And this generates this issue that they don't have enough front support. The car starts to dive and you don't get the same front end feel that you would like, which is on the other cars, you can put it as far as you want because, there's no issue of the steering bell crank catching it. So that's the things that, right now, sure, Schumacher is better and it's more optimal. But as soon as these other brands figure out these little packaging issues, or be then that they sort of understand where they are within the setup, like for example, this Axon, if you look at the front drive shaft, the kingpin goes here, but the drive shaft joint is inwards from the kingpin. So when you turn the wheel, the joint moves too. This generates a huge amount of vibration and issues for the front, which again is a thing you can improve. So even though the concept itself, I say, is better, they have not utilized the concept to its best benefits, and they have made some, I don't want to say errors, but at this point they are errors in the design. So this is sort of the thing I'm talking about in car design. And why I want to bring this up on touring cars is because on 8 scale, we are not going this far out. The design of the cars is kind of like, let's see what we have and let's put something together. And then the driver drives as well as they can. Whereas in touring cars, the car matters so much more that you actually have to like develop it. Then the other thing that Joseph absolutely loved of the Axon that I don't necessarily like that much is they have this C hub design. So what they have is they have hinge pin here. So the whole C hub is controlled by the hinge pin. That means that um, they have a set amount of caster on the car and a set amount of movement for the front arm. Difference here is like, for example, the Schumacher, pretty much every other car, they have a pivot ball front end. And what you're able to do with the pivot ball is you're able to adjust caster actively. So with angling the lower and the upper arms differently, you're going to achieve active caster, which means that let's say the front end goes down, you get more caster, or the front end goes up, you get more caster, whichever way you adjust it. Additionally, with the pivot ball setup, you can get different dive characteristics without affecting sort of the height of the arm as much. You can have the lower arm in a certain angle, the upper arm in a certain angle, and get much more aggressive dive characteristics than with the C hub style. And I think that's one of the bigger benefits here.
I have
Of
a
the
quick
pivot
question.
ball. Yeah.
I have a quick question. What are these little tabs over the wheels. Is that to prevent the body from tucking?
That's to prevent the body. So what these modern touring cars do is they don't actually put the body so that when the car rolls, the body is basically too big. So what they do is they allow the body to move up and down, and then these little like arms here on top of the front arm, and you can see them on top of the front diff mount. What these actually do is when the car starts to roll, these support the body and they raise here on the body posts, but these support the body. So effectively, the body is always as close to the ground as possible. So the air doesn't go under the body shell, it goes over the body shell, which generates downforce. And these sort of little pieces here hold it so that it doesn't touch the ground. So you can cut the body really, really low, so it's almost dragging the ground. And when it rolls, it's not going to go any lower on the side because these hold it up.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, JQ complained about those joints too. You can see it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but I feel like there is a reason why full scale modern cars use pivot ball suspension, or they even use 5-point suspension. We only use 3-point suspension most likely. Here is 1-point suspension basically, or 2-point suspension maybe, but they use 5 points of suspension that are allowed to move freely, so they can direct the angle of the hub in every single way during the up and down movement of the suspension. And I feel like that if you understand that well enough, there's an advantage to it. But on the current level we're working in RC, maybe Joseph is right that C hub would be better for most of these brands. But I do still think that that's one setup option that limits you for the future. Sure, there are other benefits like Joseph said about less or a lighter upper arm, for example, is one benefit. Another benefit is that you can actually have a shorter upper link than the kingpin inclination would be, which is in some scenarios a definite benefit. So I do understand his points, but I personally have a little bit different philosophy of how you should do pickup points for the hubs. So that's all I wanted to say about the Axon. But I feel like the touring car market is incredibly interesting right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to bring those up. Just because if there's anyone who's geeking out about RC and is driving off road, on road is so much more fun because you can just look at this stuff and there's so much innovation going on all the time.
Mm.
Sure, is it killing the on road market from the inside? Yes, it is for sure. There's not going to be manufacturers making any money from these cars, but is it fun to look at? For sure, it is.
You're definitely having fun. You're definitely having fun with it.
I'm
JQ,
definitely.
you and JQ both going into touring car at the same time.
Yeah, let me
Uh,
actually bring this one last point after the touring cars.
Yeah, because you have a new topic, new trend in touring cars. What's this all about, Max? Keep it brief.
So this is going to be brief. Steel chassis.
Mm.
So Automatics was the first to come up with this. I believe it was the Euros last summer. Reinhardt actually ended up winning them, but the first I saw this was Euros, touring car Euros last year. So this is, I'm assuming, some form of stainless steel. It's thinner, so it's same weight. So they make it thinner that it would be the same weight, or like, or you could in theory also make it thicker or like the same thickness, but it would just be the weight would be lower. Because the thing with these touring cars is they are most likely all the way down to the minimum weight limit, and this would add the weight much lower on the car. So there's two ways you can use this. You can make it thinner, where you could retain the same flex as aluminum, because steel is stronger than aluminum. So if you make it thinner, you can retain the same flex. And as a benefit, you are going to get everything a little bit lower if you make a thinner chassis plate. So let's say you run a 2 millimeter chassis and then you make a 1.5 millimeter steel chassis, you get everything lower. Or then the other way you can work around it is you can make a lot of these cutouts, um, and you can make it basically just same flex with cutouts, but you have it way a bit more, so you get way down. So there's a lot of ways you can play with this. You can either use it to put everything lower physically to lower the center of gravity. You can have a heavier chassis plate if your car is under the minimum weight. And additionally, it's like I would assume at least that steel is a better material to work with in terms of flex, because aluminum in a lot of scenarios tends to bend quite easily. It doesn't really have a lot of elasticity to it. It's quite flat.
No, and the steel can flex and come back.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard there was a whole big kerfuffle about steel chassis at the Worlds because apparently Schumacher did not give Cavallari one. That's what I was told. For Schumacher.
Yeah, so that's kind of Automatics released this at the beginning of this month. What I heard was Schumacher still doesn't have very many of those because from my understanding, Pecco got only 3 and he broke one, so he was a bit scared that he'd break the rest. And here you can see it's 1.2 millimeter hardened steel, and the aluminum ones, to my knowledge, is I think 2 millimeters. So obviously you're almost 1 millimeter lower with everything in the car. So imagine you just lower the center of gravity by 1 millimeter with still having the um same ride height. And then obviously they have here it's more wear resistance and it doesn't bend as easy. Um, but yeah, then again they have different screws because it's so
So
thin.
they're
And
using this over a carbon fiber chassis, correct?
I assume so. I don't know because they use carbon fiber, they use aluminum, and now they use steel. So I don't really know. Usually it was that carbon fiber was for low grip, aluminum was for high grip. I don't really know which one this is for. I'd assume it's to replace aluminum chassis.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. All
Yeah.
you one-word nerds, let us know. No offense. Nerd is a cool thing. All right.
Yeah.
We want to know. Up next, Kyosho. Kyosho releases two-wheel drive buggy. Is this going to lead to a four-wheel drive buggy? Are we going to see Kyosho making a comeback in a very small, I wouldn't say small. The manufacturer presence in the 10 scale off-road market is very small. We have TLR associated, X-Ray Schumacher. I saw a PR car. I know my buddy Jerry Fisher just joined PR. We actually have a question about that in our questions, our bench racing Q&A. But I thought you were bringing it up. What happened, Max? I was
I'm
waiting on
trying
you.
to bring it up. I lost it.
All right. Well, I'll bring it up.
No, I can.
Oh, Max has it. So Kyosho releases the Ultima RB 7.5 3430 has been released. So, Max, tell us what you know about
Yeah,
this.
well, I know for a fact they don't have a quick release rear diff, which is going to be like, why even bother? And they're like, I'm sorry, but like, yeah, I don't know.
You're not excited? All right. So we're looking at. I'll bring up the pictures then, if you want.
No, no, no,
Because
no,
you.
no. No.
All right. So
I
Max is
think
insistent on bringing up the pictures. Everybody. Do
why
you think
don't
that Kyosho is going to be able to make a dent in the 10 scale market with this?
honestly, no. So I think it's how is this so hard finding the pictures? Okay, now I have it. Finally. Okay. So personally, I don't really know why they're doing this. Because as I stated earlier, they do not have they don't have quick release diffs here. Can I zoom in on this? Oh, it's not very good zoom. So they don't have quick release diffs here. They don't really offer anything that spectacular new. Um, it's a very weird release, to be honest. Like here, you can see you still have to take the diff case out to take the diff out. The rear end is pretty much similar to the old car, the RB7, I think. Then they have made differences in the front. So pretty much what they've done is they made new shock towers, new front arms, new like front end geometry. They have some differences in the motor plates, and same thing with the rear. They make new shock towers and some new geometry. But as I said, like, why even bother bringing a new car out if it doesn't have a quick release diff in the rear? Um, they have been running this car for a while in Japan. I know for a fact. Um, but I mean, it doesn't really offer anything new. It just looks like every other two-wheel drive on the market. And yeah, it's a very weird thing what they're doing. I think what's happening is they are getting financially back on their feet, and they are just bringing everything back that they got rid of, because they have been running a touring car prototype in Japan for almost 2 years now.
Mm.
This specific car was ran at the Worlds, or well, not this specific car, but a version of this car of the two-wheel drive was ran at the Worlds in Arizona. So to me, it looks like they have a few guys who are working there, and they're just trying to bring back all the old cars. So two-wheel drive, touring car.
They're trying to
It's
reuse those old molds, dude. They're trying to get in there,
exactly.
get into a market, like sell a few of these cars and reuse those molds. So people who got excited about this, I do not think we're going to see Ryan Lutz doing 10 scale. I know he's
No,
already
definitely
busy.
not. Definitely not.
So basically, what you're saying is they just re-released an updated old car. They put minimum
Pretty
effort
much.
into it. Minimum effort.
They have put some effort into it for sure, because they did have new front arms. They did have new front like bulkheads and all that kind of stuff, new chassis. So they did definitely make new molds too. So it's not like they've done nothing. But I personally, I don't understand why they didn't do a new rear diff case, because that's like the biggest complaint about the TLR. And now they are even coming out with a new car. So
it's weird, right?
yeah, it's very weird. Like even Mugen, when they came out with a car, it is still up to the modern standards. So I think they just kind of want to get back on their feet with 10 scale, maybe sell a few kits. For sure, they'll make a bunch of sales in Japan because they have a big following in Japan.
I don't
But they,
foresee a
I
full
feel
I don't foresee a full force 10 like to
no.
compete with Associated Schumacher and X-Ray on the US side of things. Oh, it'll be
Yeah,
very hard.
no, not gonna
Very
happen.
hard.
And they are coming out with a new touring car probably at some point, because they've been working so hard on the prototype. It's been 2 years people have been going to races with this Kyosho touring car prototype. So most likely they're coming out with a touring car as well. But yeah, well, let's see. But definitely not like very psyched about the Kyosho.
All right, let's get into some silly season news real quick here. It looks like Cavallari, well, we knew this was happening. Invisible Speed RC, we are excited to announce our first ever Invisible Speed pro driver, Ryan Cavallari. Ryan is a 4-time world champion in 10 scale off road. Wow, he's 38. In the 38, wow, I didn't realize he was that old. 38 is enjoying his last few years of racing at the top level. The skill and talent is there, but with the higher level of racing these days, knowledge is power. We believe that Ryan still has speed in him to win. This is why he was signed. Can Visible Speed help make Ryan's speed visible again? He will be 40 years old at the next Worlds in 8-scale Nitro. That is our goal. Let's go. And of course, he will be running the Mayako chassis. Cavallari says, I'm really pleased to announce I will be racing the Invisible Speed in 2025 and beyond. I can feel very confident starting this new chapter in my racing program. I can't wait to see what we can accomplish together. I would like to thank Joseph and everyone involved for this opportunity. Max, now you can't say nothing bad about Cavallari because JQ is going to
Oh,
be
I
pissed off
can.
at.
I can't say anything I want. You know the thing with JQ?
You can and you do.
Yeah,
Um,
I
can
I
I?
I
Can I go
yeah,
first on this one?
yeah.
So I remember back in 2018 we when I was working for JQ Racing, and I thought for sure we was going to sign Cavallari. And in 2018, when he was leaving Associated and he went to S-Works, that was when Cavallari was on fire. I mean, it's 2005, so 7 years ago, right? 7 years ago. So he's 31. He was on fire. He made that move to S-Works. I personally think that he had success at S-Works. I think he found success in his second year, and he found success at TLR in his second year. Then he had that year at WIRC. Then he had that year at Sparco. And I personally feel that he's at his last chance. I mean, there still might be a chance after this, but very, very few and far between. He's running the one-up cars, associated cars via one-up. I went back and I didn't realize this. He did make the final at Silver State. Like, I think Cavallari still has the ability to drive. Does he have the work ethic and drive to go out there and do what's needed to stay on top? Because that seems to be the problem, right? Not going out there. Now, I don't know how much work he puts in, but according to what other people are saying, he doesn't practice much. He doesn't go out there as much as possible. And that comes down to something that Joseph always says: it's not about getting old, it's about priorities becoming more of a priority. He does have 2 children. He's a married man. That starts happening. His children getting older. I don't know. Finally, JQ gets his man in Cavallari. Why, people may ask, via invisible speed and not Mayako. Well, I truly think invisible speed is the future of a lot of things. And we saw invisible speed have an RCGP team. This is always, I know, Joseph's dream to have an invisible speed driver running the car that he runs, he builds or has designed, and racing under that. We saw, I think Cody Watson was an invisible speed racer. Pecco was an invisible speed racer on the RCGP. So it's good. What is it going to do for Cavallari's career? I don't know. Unless Cavallari decides to go out there and put that work in. And I've talked to Greg. Greg's been kind of hanging out with him. Greg and this Nerd Cav for a long time, so he's there hanging out with him. Greg has his opinions on what's his problem with his program, and it's up to Cavallari and how their relationship is going to be. Now, Cavallari and JQ have had a good relationship for many years. They've had a bromance brewing. They've gone, they used to practice at OCRC when JQ had dreams of being a 10 scale racer. JQ has helped Cavallari out quite a few times to set up, and they have a friendship. But I have to be honest, if we're looking at history and how things end up with JQ and people that get involved with him, it's not looking good. That doesn't look good, but hopefully he can learn and apply that to Cavallari. And hopefully Cavallari sees like, this might be my last chance to do what I love for a living, put his head down and put in the work that's needed to stay, not win, but like if Cavallari can make the A final at DNC, that's a win. That I know that's not a win really.
Yeah.
But I think in this situation it's a win. And I hope it works out. I hope it works out because Cav, you may not like him, but I have always been a big Cavallari fan myself, and so to Joe. That man has won. I think he's won more than Mayfield and Tebow in lots of things. Definitely won more world championships, won more Reedy championships. He's won about this. They've all won about the same equal amount of national championships. Cav is also one of the few racers to have a Neo Buggy win under his belt. And he's had such an illustrious career. Okay, his last few years have not been great, but this is what happens when you get to that old stage of your career. If you ever watched, remember, probably a little old for you, but it had it's always going to be some fast up and coming racers coming up, and you're going to be that old dog at some point. And that's what Cavallari is. He's that old dog still on the porch. He still comes off the porch now and then. He has some tricks up his sleeve, but if he wants to even be in contention, he's going to have to put in some work. It's going to be more than setup. Now, setup would definitely help. And when you get to these, you got to run what you can. You got to run what you can. And he's a guy that came from running the best of everything to running what you can now. So
Yeah.
I hope Mayako, I hope JQ and him can get along where they work together. Like I really think JQ should have been out there this week while we're recording this. They should have been out like they usually do, go from Thursday or go from Wednesday to the DNC migration. Wednesday, go out there on a Wednesday, practice the weekend, get dialed in and get ready for the race the following weekend. I really think JQ should have done that. But he just came from Thailand. Maybe him and Greg have been out there enough. I'll tell you what, Greg is very good at setup and racecraft. So, and he's known Podge for a long time. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I wish them both all the best because I like Cavallari. I know you don't like Cavallari, and now I'm going to let you go on your spiel about this.
Yeah, I don't mind Cavallari.
Sure. I don't want to have to watermelon. You know what? I'm pre-watermelon seed you. 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my thought process is exactly the same as JQ in that it's not like he has lost his talent. Same thing with Thibaut. It's not like he's lost his talent. Same thing with Robert too. It's not like none of these guys have lost their talent. And I think it's pretty obvious, The issue is that same thing with Robert, same thing with Thibaut, same thing with Cavallari. All of these are world champions. All of these are, well, Robert, European champion, they have national champions. They have a lot of success in their career. But still, all these guys sometimes just totally shit the bed, And why? Why that is? It's because they are not doing RC like they used to do. Like when Robert was winning his titles, he was at the track probably every day, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have anything. You remember Robert, right? Like every Valentine's Day, he would post a picture of him on a table with a car, That was his thing. Now he has a child. He has assuming they're married with their wife. Ryan Cavallari, I don't know if they have kids. They have kids, I'm pretty sure.
They have 2 kids.
Has 2 kids, yeah. Thibaut has, I don't
3.
even know how many kids, 3 kids?
Lutz has 3.
Yeah,
These
so
guys are family men. They're men. They're like 37, 38. Well, Lutz is going to be 40. So I know how this is because I spent a lot of time away from home last year and it cost you.
Yeah, so the thing is that when you have that afternoon free or whatever, you're gonna be like, "Hey, let me spend some time with my kids." And it's different when they are, like, incredibly young, like, when they are, like, 1 or 2 years old and so on. Sure, you can go out to the track once in a while, but for, like, Thibaut, like, I bet all of these kids do fucking volleyball or soccer practice or whatever, and sure, his wife maybe can take good care of that, but he's gonna want to be part of that? So, it's just that your priorities change. With Mayfield, he absolutely loves RC, so I believe that he doesn't feel like work to him. So, like, when he has time off, he goes to the track and relaxes, and then he goes and hang out with kids. But a lot of these other guys, like Thibaut, he loves riding motorcycle, he likes mountain biking. That's all away from RC. Robert has his own shop, he most likely puts a lot of time and effort into that. That's away from him practicing. Ryan, I don't really know, but I'm assuming he does something with his wife and kids. They seem to be enjoying some of the high cultures of life. That's away from his practice. And I think that's the sole issue here. Like, they are not geeking out on RC like they used to be. And Cavallari, I think the reason why he's struggling the most is because I feel like he's always practiced the least. From those 3 guys, he's always practiced the least. So now he's in a moment where he practiced even less, and he's getting so old that he's like, well, his focus in life has changed a lot. So he's not, when he goes to sleep, he doesn't think about how to drive around faster the corner. He thinks about something else. So I think that is the main issue with Cavallari, and that is easy to be fixed by someone who really tells you what to do. Like Robert, for example, he finished 7th at the Worlds. didn't touch his own car once. JQ arranged for him. He gave Robert the car before he went out to run. Joseph made all the setup decisions, everything, and he went well at the Worlds, you know. But the thing is that some of these guys need that. Tebow would definitely need something like that. And Cavalieri, I don't know him that well, but I assume he's someone who needs to go with him to the track and tell him, okay, we're gonna do this, this, this. We have 8 hours of time, and then you can go and hang out with your kids. And then next day we do this, this, this. We have 8 hours time, and yeah, then fuck off, go hang out with your kids. You know, I think some of these guys just need that. Mayfield clearly doesn't. He goes to the track, he knows what he wants to test, he loves it, and then he goes home and spends his kids. But some of these guys, they need more sort of leading to get it done. And I feel Cavalieri is in that situation. Clearly, he's still fine. Finished fifth at the Nats last year, but he's not motivated enough to do the work behind it.
Okay, so I agree with all of what you just said, and we're going to end this with a prediction prior to our DNC show that we're going to do next week. Does Cav make the final at DNC? Nitro,
Most likely
Nitro
not. Most likely not.
Wow.
Jake is not there, so
He will be there.
maybe
He will be there.
sure, but like, does he make the final at DNC? No, I don't think he will. Maybe
Really?
Silver State, maybe PMB, because then he's like, because the thing with like, I don't think Joseph's ever seen Cavalieri drive, and JQ's the type of guy that he won't tell you anything, and then he comes and shows up the track, sees what's wrong, and then he'll know how to fix it. But I don't think there will be enough time until DNC.
I would
So
agree with that. That's why I said he should have been out there this weekend.
yeah, JQ is the type of guy that if you send him a message, he will answer yes or no. But when you meet up with him face to face, he'll tell you all the stories and go out and about everything. So he really needs to be physically there with
Mhm,
you
mhm,
to get
mhm.
things done. And I think they haven't done that with Cav, so I think it's not going to work out. And unless for some reason the setup is already good at there, Cavalier's happy from the get go, then sure, maybe. But like, seeing how he did at the 2 races before, most likely not at that stage yet.
Okay. I can respect that. It's going to be interesting to see. Interesting. I heard there's another invisible speed driver coming too, but kind of newish to 8 scale. He's a top stock driver. Just gonna leave it at that. Just gonna leave it at that before we get on to our next segment of this race, which is the Side Piece Racing and Latara Racing past races.
Elevate your RC experience with SidepieceRacing.com, North America's exclusive distributor for top-tier brands like Automatics, Roche, Wild Turbofan, Montec Racing, Corsetec, Phoenix Racing, and Will Speed. I'm also hearing that they are bringing some Coyote stuff to their inventory. Whether you're seeking precision engineered car kits, high performance batteries, or aerodynamic bodies, we've got you covered. Enjoy fast shipping and exceptional customer service, ensuring you get the best gear when you need it. Visit sidepieceRacing.com today and race ahead of the competition. So, Sidepiece Racing are sponsor and hobby shop sponsor specifically from the side of America, focusing especially on the on-road side of things. But on the European side of things, we have another sponsor new to our show. It's Latera Racing. Step up your RC racing with Latera Racing, one of Sweden's premier hobby shops and track dedicated racers, featuring top brands like X-Ray, Hobbywing, Zoo Racing, and Team Coyote. We provide everything you need from precision chassis to high performance electronics. Whether you're at the track or upgrading your setup, Latera Racing caters to racers who demand the best. Visit latera.se or stop by our shop and track for the ultimate RC experience. Latera Racing, built for winners. And I
Yep.
said, we got both continents covered, Europe and America.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Big shout out to Hefty and Kim and Martin at Latara and Hefty at Sidepiece. We greatly appreciate it. If you guys do order anything from them, just let them know that you heard about them on the No Name RC podcast. I'm working on coupon codes. Working. That's why I'm him. All right, we're going to talk about past races. And this race, which is supposed to be the big, you know what? This is not the biggest race in on-road RC right now. You know what the biggest race in on-road RC is? That TITC race, because more people were talking about that than Snowbirds. I forgot that the Snowbirds were even happening. The only reason I knew they were happening is because I know Lance went on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I remember, let's say 10 years ago, it was like, oh, this is the crazy on-road race where everybody goes to and so on. But I was just like reading RC, like RC, Red RC or something. And I was like, oh, what is race in America? Like, oh, no, I watched a video from, I think it was One Up. And they was filming Hagberg. Oh no, Hagberg looks pretty good. What race is this? And then I read down the post. It's, oh, this is Snowbirds. Oh, it's happening this week. Then obviously we forgot to talk about it. But yeah, I don't know what happened to this race, but went totally under radar this year. I mean, even ETS was so much bigger than
Yeah,
Snowbird.
yeah. Well, that comes from coverage, right? So
100%. Yeah.
ETS. Even I have not watched a lap of TITC, but I know it had coverage, right?
Yeah.
They had some coverage at Snowbirds, but it's basic, minimal, and it's still got a good turnout. I mean, but on the pro level side of things, the turnout was bad. I mean,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, Hagberg, Anderson, and Herbert. Those are three good guys, but there's no Coelho. There's not. If you guys heard that, hold on for a second. That's my my air purifier kicking in. I mean, Hagberg won 12 scale GP touring car. It's the same. Hagberg, Kemp Anderson, and Kevin Hebert. So we have
Yeah.
the Swedish, the American, and the French Canadian going after each other. And all capable racers, but when you don't have the top, this is what, when you don't have those top names there and you don't have the coverage, I think that companies stop seeing the importance. And it's so busy, right? You had ETS coming up. ETS were a good, okay, no Americans go to that, but it's also like a lot of touring car racing in a very short period of time. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I
um,
think it was the previous weekend from ETS, if I'm not totally wrong.
I can't remember. Up next
Yeah.
was the Mibo Cup 2025, held February 7th to the 9th in, you're going to have to help me out with that one, Max. I want to say hot race, Czech Republic, but I know it's not hot race.
It's Rotovic.
Rotovic. I said it right. Rotovic, Czech Republic. Some of the pre-race talking points was this is one of the biggest indoor races of the year. Max is going to bring up a picture because this is touring car on one side, right? On-road on one side and four-wheel drive on the other side.
Yeah. Let me
There we
bring it
go.
up
Max
so
got a picture.
you guys can see. Yeah. So it's basically like you have touring car track, you have the off-road track. I'm not sure if they run the mains at the same time on both sides, but at least like practice, they run same time on both sides. But it's they've done this for years. It's an old race, but it's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even realize this was going on. This didn't have much coverage either, to be honest. So, or maybe
Red
I
RC was there. Red RC was there, but the issue with this race was so now that I look at the schedule again, so we had ETS on the last full weekend of January, so 25th to 26th January. 28th to 29th. What? 25th to 26th of January. Then we had EOS and Snowbirds on the January 31st to February 2nd. And then 1 week from that, we had the Mibo Cup. And then the race we're going to talk about the next, MKGP, that was the week after that.
and
So
you
that was
had Dawn in
basically
that too. Don't forget you
yeah,
had
yeah, yeah.
EOS Dawn.
Yeah, so we had the Snowbirds and the EOS Dawn was the same weekend. Then 1 week before that, it was the Snowbirds, and then 1 week after that, one
No, I
week
think
before that was the ETS, and then 1 week after that was the Mibo Cup. There's so many races in a row. So
there's
and then
enough. They need to
TITC after
space them
that.
out. They need to space them out. It's too many.
Yeah, I don't know what happened here, but there was 3 weekends in a row actually 4 weekends in a row where there was on-road and off-road races, which a lot of these same guys go to.
And they're still going because
So
we haven't even got Montpellier GP in her. But
yeah, and
let's just,
TITC and everything,
let's have a quick look. Touring star stock was Adam Ize, David Ehrbar, and Martin Hootie. Touring mod was Volker, and they say there's a new Mugen car as well.
Yeah,
Orlowski and
so
Patrick. Yeah, touch on a
yeah,
new
so
Mugen car.
no, because there wasn't any pictures. Well, like there could have been, but I at least didn't see any new pictures. So this is the car that they already run at the Worlds. we talked about it with Will on the EOS podcast because we also covered a little bit of ETS. So yeah, Mugen has a new car. It has been performing really well. He was quite competitive at ETS, but this race was extremely good for him because, yeah, Vertical won in front of Orlowski, which is, I think Orlowski has won every single race except the Worlds and the Euros for the past 2 years of on road that he's attended. So it was actually quite impressive that Volker ended up winning. And then the guy in third, Patrick Gullner, he's also a Mugen driver. He just joined Mugen at the start of the year. So quite impressive. And I wanna correct because I actually had put the notes down wrong. Martin Hoodie finished second in stock in front of David Erebar.
Okay. In two-wheel drive, we have Bartosz Zaleski, Kobovic, and Karup. And a four driver was Carrick, Kobovic, and Zaleski. And all three of those guys are fast as fuck. So
Yeah.
We'll move on to the M, and in between that we had ES Dawn, which was an extensive 3 hour and 45-minute podcast about that. It showed
But that was
308.
before. That was before.
Yeah,
Week
so we
before.
had that before that as well. Then we had the MKGP, which was being held, and the same weekend as Motorama was being held. We forgot to put Motorama in her as well. Maybe you can look up the results for that real quick. But the MKGP, which is a very good race, it's held inside of a mall at Milton Keynes there in the UK. It was held February 14th to 16th. No Scotty this year because he was doing his race over at Motorama. So usually they have Scotty here. They did have coverage. I watched a bit of it. I did not tune in that much to it. I know Will went her to this race. I did see. I think I had my kids this weekend, so I wasn't really. I think I was taking a break from RC. I can't remember. But two-wheel drive was Tommy Hall, Karup, Zaleski, who we just talked about. Four-wheel drive was Zaleski, Ongaro, and Karup. So Ongaro making a trip over there to run. Where did we know where Ongaro finished in two-wheel drive? And here we say third Big 10 scale race of the year, all 1 week apart. It's a lot of racing in January, February.
Yeah, I don't know why they did this. Like to me, it makes no sense to have that many races so close together. And like sure, a lot of these guys went. MKGP, we kind of only missed Orlowski. Everyone else was there, and Ongaro was there. But yeah, I think it was weird too.
Kind of a weird race. Did Ongaro go last year?
Yeah, I think so.
It's kind of a weird race that he goes to, don't you think? He doesn't go to many 10 scale races, but he goes to this one.
Okay, I don't know why, but he has enjoyed this one before. Went to this one before. But yeah, I mean, it was very weird because in four-wheel drive, like the usual suspects weren't that good. So like, sure, Kara finished third, but he qualified like fifth or something. And then Lee Martin was up there in four-wheel drive. He was, I think, in sixth or something, like very high up. And Zalewski just dominated everyone. Like he was Orlowski or Ongaro got close once in a while. I watched the mains, but he was like Zalewski just dominated four-wheel drive in terms of speed. And two-wheel drive, Tommy Hall just dominated. Karup had nothing on him. Whereas EOS a few weeks before, like sure Hall was fast, but Karup was so much better than anyone else. Very interesting MKGP this year. Very weird, but they ran a different surface too. So I think
they had multiple surfaces too. Will said it. What did Will say about the surface? I can't remember what he said in our chat.
They had a different one this year. It was different carpet. I think that was just it. It was one surface of the track, but like it was different from last year.
Okay. Alrighty then. It just, you know what it didn't have? It didn't have the pizzazz that it's had years before. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I wasn't paying attention to it. Not saying that just because I weren't paying attention to it doesn't mean that, but it's hard, man. There's so much races coming up. There's races on top of races. I'm looking at the Motorama race now. Like,
yeah, so. I think that's the big issue with having these races so close together.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, there's Mibo Cup. I barely followed that. MKGP. I barely followed that. And then during the weekend of MKGP, everyone was already at TITC. Like Orlowski was there, Petro
Exactly.
was there. Everyone was practicing at TITC. So I was like already following that one. So I think that's also because last year I remember there was a lot of hype for MKGP already before the race even happened.
Mhm.
And this year I was like, oh, they already ran qualifiers when it was like Friday afternoon. Like, oh,
I know you didn't know nothing about it. It was something was different this year. Don't know what it was. But something was different about the MKGP. Something was different. All right, Motorama. I want to bring this up because I want to show this track real quick. We're gonna have a video of the track. Let's go to full screen. Oh, let's go. There we go. And this is the Motorama track. This race happens every year. It's sold out in like 2 minutes or less. And it's all electric. It's actually a part of it's a part of another. The funny thing is it's all electric, but they have indoor motocross and all that stuff in there as well. It's a very popular electric race. This is the coverage is brought to you by Toby Hampson of 46RC. I think it's him and Krista Mama from LCRC that does his interviews. Beautiful track. I know some people may be like, well, there's no banners, there's no promotion up in there. You're not allowed to put anything up in the race without paying an advertising fee. Even if you have even your personal, like if you're in one of those gazebos, those tents, and you had a banner there, you have to pay a fee for that. So no banners. But we were watching the Truggy Expert A2 main. Mayfield, I believe, won all of this. So this took place February 14th to 16th.
No, Heckert won.
I'm sorry. It took, yes, apologies. February 14th to 16th at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Truggy was Heckert, Mayfield, Bourdon. And in Buggy, sorry, I thought Mayfield did win. It was Chase Lemieux who makes a quick roundabout from INS to Buggy class. He wins Buggy followed by Setzer and Mechanic. Ooh, so Mayfield didn't win.
He was fifth. Yeah,
wow. See, that's how much I didn't pay attention. So this is a decent race. We have Lutz, we have Mayfield, Heckert, Setzer, Drake. Drake went too. I didn't even Drake went. Ryan Lutz, Bourdon, Bornhorst. Wow. Bornhorst. Adam Johnson. I haven't heard that name for a long time.
Yeah, but I think this was Truggy was somewhat normal. He was Heckert, Mayfield, Bourdon, then Lutz, Lemieux, and then other guys basically. But then like Buggy was Lemieux, Setzer, Mechanic, Bourdon, and then you have Mayfield, Drake, Heckert, Gibbler, Lutz already down in 9th. So
Lutz must have had an issue. He must have had an issue.
He was 4th and 9th in the main, so not that weird. Mayfield got a 2nd and a 5th. But I mean, it was just that, some of these younger guys, I guess, they just ran really well. Lemieux won it in A1, A2. Same thing with Heckert in the Truggy side. I don't know what Mayfield has had a tough time at this race before. You remember last year when Lutz like totally smoked him here. So it definitely not like the best best race for Mayfield.
No. But he did have a good race coming up next in our Invisible Speed and ML Toys race recap. Congratulations to everybody who raced this past weekend. If we did miss your race, we do apologize. But those are the ones that mainly stuck out to us. And up next is our Invisible. We're going to look at 2 races, the FTC race and some race I had no idea what was going on. And that is brought to you by Invisible Speed and ML Toys.
Stop scrolling, you wannabe Lewis Hamilton. Learn something new with Invisible Speed. You can't do everything at 100% maximum speed. You have to be smooth. I mean, when you drive a real car, if you drive a real car, how do you just, when you get to a 90-degree corner to turn into the parking lot, do you go like that with the steering wheel? Do you like slam on the throttle and the brake? No, you probably turn the wheel smooth and get on the throttle smooth. Same thing with an RC car. If you want to learn more and make your speed visible, stop scrolling.
That's right. Stop scrolling. And no, that offer does not exist. That's an old commercial. We need to get JQ make a new commercial. Also, a big shout out to ML Toys, your biggest maker of power wheel modification parts. That's right, everybody. Non-RC power wheels. That's what I'm getting into with my daughter. Power wheel modification racing. Attention ride-on enthusiasts and RC enthusiasts. I know you have some children out there that are of this age. Looking to take your Power Wheels to the next level? ML Toys has you covered. Specializing in upgrades for Power Wheels and ride-on vehicles, ML Toys offers everything from high-performance motors and gearboxes to custom batteries and lighting kits. Whether you're aiming for more speed, better durability, or just want to ride to stand out, ML Toys has the parts and expertise to make it happen. Upgrade your ride-on today at mltoys.com. That's mltoys.com. And don't forget, our Power Wheels podcast has dropped. You can go over there and look for Power Wheels podcast on YouTube. And you can also save 10% by using promo code no name if you want to go there and get some batteries. Thank you to Alan Placer. I know there are some dads out there that have kids that have Power Wheels. If you want to make them faster, go check out ML Toys YouTube. They have lots of helpful hints as well. Max, let's get into this race that I have no idea about. Yet you have her on the. I don't want you to be long, because I know you, but I didn't even know this race was going on. It's the. Hold on, where is it? The Scuderia. Oh, you erased it. Oh, the Scuderia Bianchini Racing Trofeo. So this is in Italy. It's the Scuderia Bianchini Racing Trophy held February 21st to 23rd. So it was last weekend as we're recording this at SRB. Membro, Italy. Do we have video of this at all? Go ahead, Max. I'm gonna let you lead this.
We don't have anything from this race except for some social media post and Circus RC. The reason why I included it was big, let's
European
say a club
race.
No, it's not even a big European race. It was a big club race in the northern parts of Italy, and the great thing about northern parts of Italy is quite a lot of fast guys go. So Kilic was there, Ongaro was there, Barufalo was there. I'm pretty sure Berton was there. A lot of the fast Italians were there. And the reason why I bring this up is because you remember at the end of last year, we was discussing like who's going to beat Ongaro. Like, he won Buggy Land and he dominated the Reg GP. Like he was after the Worlds, he was just winning everything. There was no race that he had any issue with. And then we go into this year. He struggles in Montpellier. Okay, we can put that on too. Maybe these tires weren't the best. He had a tough start to the main for one. He still came second in the end, very close to winning. So not bad Montpellier, but Canas was strong. Everything worked for him and so on. Kilic brothers had good tires there. Now we move on to this race in Italy. I bet Kilic doesn't have any extra practice or benefit or whatever. And he wins. Burak won. He beat Ongaro. He beat Barufalo, all the Italians. And TQ'd and won. Ongaro was second. I think, like, when I saw this result, I was like, okay, wow. Because Ongaro pretty much wins every single race in Italy. Like, it's very rare that he doesn't win a race in Italy unless he retires or DNFs for some reason. So that's why it piqued my interest. And is Burak on a roll? Like, can he become like the number one name? Because
he should be put into our dark horses at DNC.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, sure, he had a little bit of a tough time at AMS. Sure, Silver State last year, I don't think he even made the main. So he still has some room to gain. At the Worlds, kind of struggled. Same with Berkan. They kind of struggled. They had good runs, but they kind of struggled. Euros last year, he TQ'd. So he showed pace at times. Now Montpellier, he absolutely dominated. I think he was the strongest guy out there. If it wasn't for those issues he had, would have won. And now he goes to Italy and beats Ongaro, beats Barufalo, all these guys on their home turf.
I see where you're getting at her.
So I'm saying has Kilic, and also like on top of this, he went to EOS and won. Like, sure, all kinds of things that happened. But has he, during the winter, made some kind of step now?
I think in 2024. I think he's now fully RC driver as of 2024.
Yeah, he's reached his, like, Pokemon, they kind of reached their final form. Like, has he evolved over?
I don't think he's evolved. I think he's still evolving.
He's still evolving.
Because he's
Still
still
going
young.
on.
I think Borak maybe 21, maybe 21. I think what's happened
I
is
think he's going 22 this year.
maybe same. Okay,
Yeah.
one more year. But I think, he had to concentrate on the auto body industry for a while and get his, papers for that. But
Yeah.
the last 2024, he's concentrated on just RC, and it's starting to show.
Yeah. But
So it's
I
going to be
think
interesting what happens with him
the
at DNC.
yeah, because
Second time
I
at
think
DNC.
I think he was. I don't know if I'm pretty sure he went last year and he did okay, but I
He
can't
went last
remember
year.
where. Yeah. So, but I'm kind of just posing this because Canas is obviously on fire.
Mhm.
At
We
the
have
end
to
of
talk
last
about
year, at the end of last year, I was thinking Ungaro was unbeatable, but now Kilic is stepping up to be very far up there. And where does this leave guys like Boots and Bonenfog, who clearly are good, but like if these other guys are absolutely on fire every time they go out on track, and we can't leave Birkin out of this either, what's going to happen to guys like Ronafog and Boots who
well,
are,
they're about to experience what older drivers experienced when they came up.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty much it. That's what they're going to experience. And these young guys are hard, like they're going hard. Like Barkan, I think he does well because Barkan's more into he wants to be a game designer, and he wants to develop a VRC simulator, and he loves RC, but he isn't as serious as Borak, and that's scary to understand because he's fucking fast, right?
yeah,
So I have to agree with your point on what we're going to see about Borak. We'll talk more about Borak on DNC.
yeah,
But he did beat these guys at their local Italian, not their local track, like not their backyard
yeah,
track,
yeah,
but
yeah.
on their home turf. Up next was the FTC race. A big shout out to Tony Schumacher, AJ Schumacher. I don't know much about this race. I haven't talked about it, but I know we promoted it on the race. I know they were on a not a turn marshal, but a Daniel Adams from Proline was supposed to do the RD but he got sick, wasn't able to do it. I just want people to see this. This wasn't a heavily attended pro race. We had Ryan Mayfield, Mason Fuller, Hackard, Lime, Josh Vigel, and his brother. This wasn't a big race, big race, and I think this suffers from the same thing we saw where we was talking about with the touring car races. This is like the third big 8 scale race just in the West Coast in the last month and a half.
Yeah, like they had the I think that was also called they had the A-main challenge, and then they had I think that was also the FTC race. So what was it called? That was that dirt?
Yeah, they had on the Westergaard race as
Factory
well.
tracks, yeah.
Yeah,
Factory
they
tracks.
had the TNR race. Don't forget we had SIC at the beginning of the year. Don't
Yeah.
forget a lot of also some of these guys were at INS. Some of these guys have been at the Clash. Some of these guys are getting ready for Desert Classic, which is this weekend, right? Which
Yeah.
as we're recording this is going on now. But I just wanted to, dude, I absolutely love how Vestergaard builds tracks. And the only thing I could think about this when I watched this was, I don't know if you guys have seen that commercial where that pig's flying and it's like, wee, wee. That's the only thing I could think when I watched this. Coverage was done by Mod Live Media. I'm not gonna lie, the Nitro compound I've never been there, but I want to go there. I love this track. Look, there's a wee jump and another wee. Like, that's all I keep seeing is like, wee. These guys are flying. Mayfield kicked ass. He made one mistake, and that allowed Mason Fuller to capitalize on him, but it wasn't enough. Hecker tried. Man, Fuller, we got to talk about Fuller a little. We'll talk about Fuller in DNC. We'll talk about it
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
Mac, what do you think?
yeah, it's I love seeing this because all I can think of is Fear Farm, but even better, like better Fear Farm. So I love looking at any race here. I think, like you said, the racing scene around the world in each class is kind of suffering from too many races at times and too little races at others. So like there's so many races going on that it's hard to focus on everything. And then it's like the coverage goes like on top of each other, and then yeah, it's tough. Because I feel like last year we reviewed this race, that was the famous Zeus, the track dog, got hit. Luckily he got out of it fine. But that was like a whole talking point. And it's not like there was much more people, but just because there was enough space in the media sphere. Oh, that was some rough crashing there. But um, yeah, I think it's tough. It's so many races going on. It's tough for these companies, and maybe we talk about this now, rant if we do it about media coverage. But it's like even if you have live streaming, it seems like it's not enough considering
Well, there's no,
how
there's
much races there are.
it's just so
Um,
many races back to back to
yeah,
back to back. And
yeah,
think about it. This racer is right before Desert Classic, right before the weekend when most people come up and do the races. But that's how hard it is to get a proper race date nowadays. That's why when people talk about Roar should do a national series, well, what dates are you going to put it at? Or we need a proper national series. What we need to do is just organize the current races that we have, because there's so many out there, and every next race is trying to be a big race, and there's more races coming. Now, as for Tony Schumacher and AJ and these guys at FTC, I think they do a lot of this just for love. They love this track.
yeah.
AJ still races. He has a hobby shop. Mayfield and all these guys come out there and race quite a lot. I love it. It's a beautiful track. You know what? I'm looking at this track and I'm like, I hope Joey lets Westergaard build the entire DNC track. I hope he
Yeah,
does.
but
And
it's different because there's not enough space to do this.
I know, but Westergaard he's just a magician with this dirt. And there's no disrespect to Joey in his tracks, but man, what Westergaard does is really good. I really like this track. I really like the TNC. I've never been there. Joseph's been there. I've never been there. And hopefully I'll get there one day. Big shout out to Tony Schumacher, AJ, and all those guys for their support of the No Name RC podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Good job to Ryan Mayfield. Takes the win. Good warm-up race for him going into DNC. And yeah, I think that was a good race. Good facility.
Can
But
I ask something?
sure.
Who the hell is Joshua Vigil? Or is it Vigil?
Vigil, I
Spanish
think.
name?
Yeah, Vigil. I don't know who they are. It's two brothers. I
Yeah,
don't. I may have met them. I don't know,
because
but
they've been doing well. Because I remember the race. I think it was the FTC race at the dirt. Like there, they did well. I think one of them finished on podium in some class. Then in the TNR race, I think one of them podium with Truggy.
Mhm.
I think it's Joshua who's the better of the two.
Yeah. I have no idea. Maybe they'll let
Yeah,
us know in the comments who they are. I don't know
yeah,
them. I haven't been out to the West Coast for a long time, so I don't
yeah.
know.
But it's like because they seem to be one of those guys that are really fast. Because I remember last year they finished like a podium at the JBRL or
Mhm.
something. But now these guys are like beating like Hacker at times. They're beating like some of these actually established like Lime, fast West Coast guys. So I think that's a big step up for these guys, and we should,
Yeah.
especially for the DNC podcast, we maybe should know who these guys are. So
Yeah, so let us know. Send me a message or send Max a message. And also, like, Camden Lime should be trying to win these type of. I don't know what happened to him, but in my opinion, he should be. I don't know what happened with Camden Lime at the end of 2024. Seems to have just lost a little bit of a touch, but we'll see how 2025 goes. All right, Max. Up next is our upcoming races, brought to you by Sidewinder Fuel. Morgan Fuel has been collaborating with many of the world's top racers for over 40 years. This has enabled us to test our fuels in many of the most challenging situations and take the development of competition fuels to the next level. The result is Sidewinder, the market's most powerful racing fuel. This fuel has been track tested and proven by national world champions such as Ryan Cavalier, Ryan Mayfield, Greg Degani, Mark Pavidis, and their current top drivers, Young, Fee Long Win. These drivers appreciate that Sidewinder is blended perfectly for high performance needs of competitive racing. Don't let victory slip through your fingers. Purchase Sidewinder today. If you want to purchase some Sidewinder, reach out to me. I'll put you in contact with them and or with Greg Degani. He will get you all sorted. Thank you to Morgan Fuel and Sidewinder for their continued support. So upcoming races, we have the Desert Classic going on at Hobby Action this weekend. I just looked at that seeding practice. Una Hotman's there, and he's to second. I just saw a
yeah, I
post
think
by
I think it
Nicola.
was Lemieux was fastest seed, then Yona was second, Horn was third, and then Koki Kata was fourth. And I think all of them were hot race guys.
Yeah, so that's
I'm
good.
I'm thinking hot race has something going on with their compounds because you rarely get a top four with all of your guys.
And you know what? I have to correct you. You have made a mistake here in the notes. It's not at Palm Desert Raceway. It's Hobby Action.
Oh, I don't know why it's that. Okay, yeah.
All right. And then, of course, we have the big enchilada coming up next week, the 2025 Dirt Nitro Challenge, where some of the best racers in the world will come to race. No, I'm not going there. We have I think we have Buggy Land going on this weekend as well in Florida, as well as a race going on in Tennessee, because I know Lance and his guys are both at those races. This is the Friday before we record this. Excuse me. I do apologize, everybody. I'm a little bit sick. Then we have PNB coming up 1st of April. That'll be the next big race. I think that's the first weekend of April. So we go from big race to a month later having another big race, right? Back to back. Then we have the RC1. We have North Georgia Shootout, which will be the end of April, which I'm going to. IBC. We see that the Asian Buggy Classic has Buggy Championships was released their calendar as well. I think their first race is in April or March in New Zealand. Then they go to the Philippine Masters the same weekend as IBC race in May. Then we have the RC1 round 2 of the ENats coming up. Lots of racing. We got lots of racing coming up here. Like I said, I'm going to the IBC race. We got the ENats races coming up. North Georgia Shootout, PNB, Nationals, Raw Nationals will be in June. RC Pro-Am, which will be in May now. Wow, lots of things going on. Lots of things. Lots of races going on. Oh, you know what? Also, a big shout out to the Keylor Off-Road Radio Control Car Association. They're having a race on the 7th of 9th. These guys are from Australia. They're going to have the RC Race Media and Mitchell and Mike. And I was told that 10 of Australia's fastest stock and 10 scale mod drivers will fight over 10 races. Really style format, drivers from all parts of Australia. Great prep for the Worlds. This is from their president, Odo said. They're excited. So that's coming up next weekend, I want to say. So it's the same weekend as DNC, which is okay because then you can watch Australia. It's going to be 12 hours ahead. So we just talked about all the racing that's coming up. There's a shit ton of racing coming up. And we haven't even gotten to I know from April to the end of the year, it's going to be busy. That's all I know. All I know, Maxie. All right. You know what? We're going to go into, we have some questions. We're not going to answer all the questions. But up next is the Bench Racing Q&A brought to you by Beach RC and Techno RC.
Techno RC. Techno RC is a championship-winning manufacturer of high-performance A-scale, 10-scale, nitro, and electric RC buggies and trucks. With a worldwide dealer network, USA and Europe-based headquarters, comprehensive warranty program, and global race support, Techno RC is excellence in RC. View the full lineup of Techno RC race-proven vehicles by visiting www.technorc.com.
That's right. Also, I forgot to mention that Beach RC is moving, everybody. They're moving from their current facility to a next one. That's sad news for them, but they are still going to be around. I don't know if they're going to have a track. I think they're going to just have warehouse space.
Yeah. That's tough. That track was like one of the best facilities on at least in South Carolina, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, rising costs and, that's enough. If you've been there, if you have, it's a very prime real estate in Myrtle Beach. So it's the landlord wants more money, which I understand. So I think Brent's just going to have storefront warehouse. He's going to focus on e-commerce more than anything. So big shout out to Beach RC. We have an affiliate link for that if you want to check it out. It's in the written description of this podcast. We got a little slice of that. Big shout out to Beach RC for all the continued support. Finally got their flag up there flying. No, that's not an American flag. That is a beachrc.com flag, everybody. And a big thank you to them for all their support.
BeachRC.com, the racer's one-stop online hobby shop. Choose from all the popular brands and variety in stock with super fast shipping and great customer service. BeachRC.com still has the local hobby shop feel with all the benefits of the internet. BeachRC.com is the exclusive distributor for Ultimate Racing, S-Works, Pro Circuit Racing tires, Nitro Lux fuels, and Assault RC performance products. So fill up your cart and check out at BeachRC.com today.
That's right. We have links for all of these companies in the written description of this podcast. And while you're there in the written description, go over there. We have some affiliate links, coupon codes. Don't forget to smash that like, sub, and notification button. Let's get to 7,000 subs. I really would love to get to 10,000. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but anything can happen. Also, go to my
Gotta
Power
believe
Reels.
it can happen.
There we go. We'll believe it. We'll make it happen. We'll into power. 10K by the end of 2025. You know what? I need you guys' help to go over to my Power Reels podcast and hit a sub button over there. I need to get that to 1,000 subs and get it up there so I can monetize it. And there's going to be more content coming out on that. All right. So we haven't done this for a long time. We haven't had questions. We will not answer all the questions because we'll be here for 2 hours. But we will answer some of these questions here in a second. Our first one coming from the Instagram world. As you can tell, if you guys are not following the No Name RC podcast on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, or TikTok, you should, because we got pretty good Instagram thing going. AO Rocket, this is like a newbie question. Hello, I see a lot of different events. Is there like set? He says, I see there's a lot of different events. Is there like set rules across the board for 4x4 or short course racing? Is there different leagues? So there's different classes. If you're in America, intermediate, sportsman, intermediate, pro. There are some rules, loosely written rules, like, I know 4x4 short course, you run 2S, nothing more. But in general, most of the races you go to in America, each track might have its individual rules. Raw has a list of rules. Afro has a list of rules, but a lot of these races you go to do not have tech. Like you go to race time events and have tech. A lot of these races don't have tech, so that doesn't matter. And yeah, I don't know. If you have any more questions, AO Rocket, hit me up and we'll talk all about it. Scour this podcast. We've talked about this thousands and thousands of times here on this podcast. All right, up next is from Griffin on the Instagram. I've been wondering about okay, this is for you, Max. Do not go more than 1 minute on this. I've been wondering about high versus low axles on carpet recently. JQ writes that low is the fast setting while high is the easy setting. But is that true for 1/10 scale on road carpet as well as, he says, is that true for 10 scale on carpet as well, or is it primarily true for dirt because of the bump handling? It seems like every X-ray carpet setup sheet has high axles and I can't figure out why.
This is something I've been pondering a bit before. In theory, you'd imagine that, high axle, you wouldn't suffer as much of the deficits that it has on carpet because the grip is high. Because usually high axle means that you have the car has less grip, you have less control and whatnot. But I have thought about this and I have tested this in practice. And I do have to say that I do think that even if you're on high grip, the lowest possible axle is going to be usually the fastest. The reason why I think this, well, okay, lowest possible, not necessarily lowest possible, but as low as you can, like in a reasonable measure, go. And the reason why I think this is because you have to think of it in a way that the closer the axle is to either your top attachment point or your bottom attachment point, the more effect or the more sort of force will be transferred through that attachment point. So let's imagine you have the axle, usually in an 8-scale off-road, it's around 10 to 12, 10 to 13 millimeters the center point of the axle relative to lower hinge pin. And then the top is somewhere around 25 to 30. I think 30 is the absolute maximum you can go before hitting the wheel. Could be even 28 is the maximum. Around 25 to 28. Some cars have it even lower. Like I think the Associated old Mugen, they had it at like 23 or 24 or something like that. So effectively, when you push the tire, it's going to push the lower arm more than it's going to push the upper arm. And that is just because it's closer to the lower arm, so the leverage is shorter. Now, the issue with racing the um, axle is that you're gonna essentially go to a situation that you're gonna generate more um, jacking. At least at some point, there will be a point where you will generate more jacking.
Explain jacking, because I used this terminology in the USA here recently, and the guys I was around did not understand it.
Okay, so there's sort of two ways the car rolls. One is that
Quickly.
the lower arm, moves like this and goes down like this, and the car moves to the outside. So that's sort of what happens. Jacking is when you're talking about the upper arm, and when the angle of the upper arm is like um steeper than the arm of the chassis. So let's say the chassis goes like this and the upper arm is like this. The upper arm starts to pull the chassis up because it wants to be straight. When you have the tire that's bending, it wants to pull the upper link, and the upper link jacks up the car, aka jacking. So that's the idea, that instead of the lower arm pushing force to the tire, the upper arm is pulling the car from the hub. So it lifts the car up. This is 90% of the time when you have issues with grip rolling, this is the issue. The link is jacking your car up and it's throwing your car around. It can benefit you too at times if you want the car to maintain a higher position for some reason. It will make the car feel stiffer for sure. But I think there's better ways to do it. But you do need some amount of jacking for sure. But yeah, that's basically tracking. So I feel like, or my belief currently, I cannot say confidently, but my belief currently is that when you start racing the axle, no matter how you adjust everything else, if you try to correct it, you will naturally go towards a point where jacking will increase. Um, I don't know if it's due to the lower arm, the jacking will increase, or due to the upper arm, but I know for a fact that you will have this jacking effect. And there might be even a situation where if you increase it too much, it's the lower arm that starts to jack instead of the upper arm. And I don't really know what would happen then. I cannot say for sure what's going to happen because I really haven't went too deep on this. But I would go by the guideline that lower is usually faster. And that is one, because you will have more traction on drive. You will have more forward traction when you go in power. And the other is that the jacking and the roll of the car will be more natural. So that's sort of my argument for it. I don't know. Maybe Joseph could answer better. I don't know if he studied this effect of how high you can actually go before it starts getting, like the lower arm start to jack, because there is a world where that should happen.
Okay.
But yeah, that's sort of my answer to this.
All right. Up next is our last Instagram question from Sebastian Wanko, who's also a member of our NNRC Discord. How do you set up brakes for 8 scale? Is it personal preference or some general things? Rapidly tell us how you set up your brakes, Max.
I used to set the brake so that I have a little bit more in the rear than in the front. Usually I go like 50-50, but there's always a slight difference. You cannot get them exactly the same. So I usually make it safe that the front has a little bit more. But as tiny amount as possible. The way I do it is I hold the other tire with my hand and brake with the transmitter, and then I turn the other tire. This is, I think, the most reliable way to do it, because then you can do it yourself too. Yeah, that's the way I do it. Maybe like 60-40, 55-45 front bias. And usually if your brakes are good, they stay quite similar for a long time. But if your brakes wear out very fast, like some brands have, then you're going to have to check them once in a while.
They do wear out. So they do wear out, and they do have to be checked and adjusted as well. And I used to do it. I used to kind of just have, I would always get somebody to hold the brakes and just I would turn the wheels myself, or I like a little bit more rear brake because sometimes I like to hit the brake to bring the car on a little bit.
Yeah, it depends how you run the
Yeah.
car too. For example, Joseph, he would always prefer more rear brake, but he also runs a car that's not very reactive on the front. And the way I want to do it is I don't want the car that when I hit the brakes, I lose the rear. I rather hit the brakes and the car maybe pushes a bit too much.
Got you. I know what you mean.
Then I want me to control with the wheel how it turns in. When I turn in, I don't want to correct there. I can correct in the middle of the corner, but I don't want to be correcting when I turn in. Whereas Joseph, he's fine with the car overturning on the entry and then he corrects it. But I feel like when you're running at very high speeds, that's the slower way to go around. You want to be in control of the car when you go into the corner.
Okay. Up next is our next question from Brian Faust. And this is a sponsorship question. He's a team manager of PR Racing. He goes, I have found sponsorship is changing profoundly. Is not changing, has changed, I would say. In particular, how easy it is to get them. That's been going on for many, many years. You no longer need to be the fast guy. That stopped many, many years ago. You just need to make the company dollars. Exactly. Because that's what you're there for. You're there to promote the brand. You got a discount, you promote the brand, and you get more people to buy it. Do you feel this is helping the racing industry community or hindering it? I've talked about this many times. We're not going back to what we were, where sponsorship was meant for skill level. It's become too much of a business tool. I know, I've been on both sides of it. He goes, I am the team manager for PR Racing USA, and we'll be building our brand. Well, you're going to have to give out lots of sponsorships. Because I know.
Yeah, but I think there's
let me finish my spiel. Okay. I have been debating this topic with the owner of a lot of community races. Where do you both stand on sponsorships or sponsorship based on skill, based on good social media platform, or people that travel to big races? So, I will say this once again. Sponsorship does not dictate skill level in RC anymore. Anybody can get sponsored. It's not a big deal. It just happens. That whole big deal of being sponsored stopped 15 years ago. This isn't something new. This is something that's going on. I feel as PR Racing, you've raced their cars, I do believe, Max.
Yeah, I was back.
I did see one PR Racing car at ENats. I know Jerry Fisher's team changed over to them. I will say this, that right now, that is one of the areas of the industry you want to be in, is 10 scale chassis market, because there isn't many off-road. And there is room for a team like PR to make some moves and to be better and do that type of stuff and maybe even do something different. But it's very hard to compete against X-Ray, Schumacher, Team Associated. And then when teams like Mugen get their shit together, or S-Works get their shit together and get, when Mugen gets a four-wheel drive car and some drivers and blah, 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 and all that type of stuff. Now, as a team manager for JQ Racing, I've sponsored everybody and their mom at one point. And I realized that was not a good idea. It sells kits. It makes money. That's where you're going to come. You're going to be like, all right, I don't want to sponsor everybody, but I got to sell kits. Right? So where's the balance there? And it's a very hard thing to find. Not always. I was once told quality is better than quantity, but you need to make that money, right? So I think you need to, if it sounds like you might just be coming back into RC, right? Doing this, or might have been around, but as a team manager, especially of a small brand like PR Racing, you're going to find that the people with the least amount of skills are going to require the biggest amount of discounts. Right? Because that's what they require, because they couldn't get that at one of the bigger teams. So now they're going to, instead of them going on and accepting their little percentage from the big discount team, they're going to try and live their RC dream through smaller companies like PR Racing. And they're going to need the best deal possible. Because I'm sure he's had this conversation many a times. And it's not going to be about skill. They're going to have a damn resume that highlights all their great accomplishments regionally. Might be a few national events there. Then you got to dissect all of that stuff. For me, it was, hey, look, I finished in the A final, top 5 of A final Truggy, but I was in the C final Pro Nitro Buggy. Well, we don't have a Truggy at JQ Racing. We have a Pro Nitro Buggy, so that's where it matters. So there's lots of things going on like that, and you're gonna have to read through all of that. Because you're a small company, people's gonna be like, well, for me to try your brand, I need the best deal possible. Then when you get to see these people actually race, they're probably not gonna be that good. But that's fine. You don't need the best racers. You need good, loyal customer bases that are gonna promote your brand. And if you could get that both on social media and both at the track. So yeah, sponsorships changed a lot. You don't have to be fast no more. You just have to be fast on Facebook, and you have to be a good a brand ambassador. I think we need to. I have a video plan. I just haven't done it. A Lefty Simple Thoughts on the whole sponsorship thing, the whole sportsman intermediate thing. I think we need to change our way of thinking on all of this. Now, that's just my spiel. I for this gentleman and PR racing, it's not the first dance for these guys. We've seen PR racing come and go many, many times. They'll come out, they'll be hot, then they'll go away. It's been a brand that struggled to get a foothold in the USA. I don't know if it's going to happen now. It might not. But it's always going to be a small brand that's going to have to give big deals. Or they're going to have to think outside the box. I'm going to let Max take this over, as I know he has something to say.
Yeah. I think there's a very clear way of going forward. So the cat's out of the bag on sponsorships. So the current business model in RC is that you have the cars, like let's say 10 years ago, you sold cars at a 20, 25, maybe 30% markup. Nowadays, you sell cars at 40 or 50% markup, but you sell them to people with a 10 to 20% discount. So that's the current market model. So instead of like 10 years ago, you get an AE tool drive, you sell it for 250, 300 as MSRP. Now you get an associated tool drive, it's 350, 400 MSRP, but everyone still pays 300 for it. Nobody pays the full price unless you get a random person who wants to get into RC and doesn't know that everyone's sponsored. Then they'll pay the big amount of money. So you do this market strategy to essentially make sure that a person is committed to your brand because you sell them with a discount. You say, hey, if you buy this car and wear this shirt at the race, you'll get 20% off of everything. And, you get cheap parts or cheaper parts. It seems like they're getting a good deal, but at the end of the day, they really aren't. But they don't know it. And nobody knows it because everything is also more expensive. So that's kind of sort of the market model now. Sure, we call them sponsored drivers. They aren't really sponsored. So that's the 20, 25, 30, in some scenarios, even 50% sponsored guys. You say like, hey, wear a shirt, a hat, send a race report, run our cars and buy our stuff. You get that amount of discount. I still make money. Like there's still that 20%, 30% markup. On parts, there's probably still 40% markup. And we're fine. Like the company's fine. We got this guy locked in for at least a year. We'll stock the parts. He'll buy them from us. That's the idea. Then there's those who are actually sponsored. Like back in the day, there wasn't this thing that you get 20% off and you're sponsored. No, that wasn't the thing. There was like, you're either sponsored or you're not sponsored. And sponsored meant that you get your shit for free or you have a budget that you can spend for that. We still have that. That hasn't gone anywhere. The issue is just that we mix up those two. So there's a difference. If you're a 50% off guy, the difference between you and the 20% off guy is that the person you pay for the stuff gets 20% more. That's the only difference. So even a 50% off guy, the company still makes money on you. Sure, it's less, but they still make money on you. So it's basically a zero-sum investment. So you're like, okay, this guy is fast at his track. He has something to show for. And we'd rather have him run our stuff than the other companies. So let's give him the 50% deal. That's effectively what it is. Then as soon as you start to get stuff for free, then that's the stage where you're talking about access sponsorships. That's the stage where you invest money to this person so you get something back. Be it race result, be it appearances, be it social media like presence from like posts and whatever. And so as a business owner or a team manager, you have to make the decision, okay, how much money do I want to spend on this person? Do I want to just give away some of my markup, which is then offering them 50%? Do I want a customer, which is then giving them 20%? Or do I actually see that this person has some value to my company, and I'll offer him, a budget deal, 100% off? And that's sort of the decision you're working with. So if you want a customer, you're gonna have to give them some discount. That's just the way of the game these days. And I think we should really separate that someone who's sponsored means that they get shit for free.
That's why we see this brand ambassador stuff, which I like. Brand ambassador versus sponsorship. I think that's the two things we should. If you want to have a definitive line, that should be it right there. Brand
ambassadors, they get free
contract
stuff,
customer.
right?
No, contract customer, or as people like to call it, contract customer, 50 off, that type of stuff. Free shit, sponsor.
Yeah. I think that's how it should be. And
we've whipped this horse to death.
Yeah. But I think like every single time this is brought up, like the solution is this. Mayako, what they do, they say, hey, we don't really give a shit if you wear a Mayako shirt. We don't give a shit if you wear Mayako stickers. You pay us this much, we give you the discount. You're locked in for a year. We are not going to have any risk in this, but you get the discount. Other brands, what they do is they say, hey, you're going to be sponsored. Isn't that cool? You're going to wear our shirt to do this, to do that. And they take a little bit of a risk, but then again, they don't really give as much. They give less discount to Mayako because they are taking more risk, obviously. Whereas Mayako is like, we eliminate the risk by having this payment up front so you can get more afterwards. That's the different business strategies. So the other one is specifically contract customer. The other one is like schemed contract customer. And I think
I would not disagree with you. Selling a dream. Yeah. Selling a dream. So let's move on. Let's move on because we fucking beat that horse to death. The next question, David Cruz. I'm just going to read this out and I have a simple answer for this. I personally would love to see 10-scale Nitro truck make a comeback. Why don't more manufacturers support and take the risk? My vision is an RTR platform from each manufacturer with specs of 0.15 or bigger for bigger tracks. Everything else can be open. With this, we could start a manufacturer stock Nitro truck class championship, keep it affordable. He says, I think ARTR Nitro needs more support, and I think the major companies all should invest and make it great again. In my opinion, a little unity would help and go a long ways. So I'm a big 10-scale truck fan. In fact, there's my MST1 right there. I still haven't built my finished my Ignite car, but I'm going to say this, guys, that class is not coming back. It's not coming back. The electric stadium truck class is extremely small at races now. And look at Mini Truggy. Mini Truggy was a 4-wheel drive electric Truggy. And no other brands made one besides Team Losi and a couple of X-Ray and a couple other teams. These companies just don't. Do you know the amount of expense you would have to put in to bring a race-ready? Like, say you take that RC10T and make it a race-ready vehicle this weekend, this year, this time. It's a lot of money, time, effort, and money invested into something that a very niche of a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche will buy. Unless you can guarantee me you're going to sell. What is Associated going to do more? They're going to release that 10T, the original 10T, right? Which people like me are going to buy because I'm nostalgic and put it on my wall. Or we're going to redesign a whole 10-scale truck and people like me and maybe 10 other guys are going to buy it and race it once a year. You know? That's what it comes down to. It's just not coming back, guys. Sorry to say. Next question is Bob Trim. Bobby Glam predictions. Hope you got. I don't know. Julian, I think will win that. Buggy Land going on at Dean's. I just had a look at the track. It looks pretty good. Pajamas RC, here we go. We got a tech question for you. Shock oil versus pistons. It's common to see racers changing shock oil on a race day due to temperature changes throughout the day. However, it's not common to see racers changing their piston package as the track conditions evolve. When would you suggest changing shock pistons versus changing oil? How do you determine what direction to go with piston hole size versus number of holes? There you go, Max. 2 minutes.
This one is pretty easy. So if you think of this on the very basic level, the hole determines sort of the tension and there's a name for this as well that I'm blanking out. But basically, the hole determines that at what point does the fluid start to pack at a viscosity. So if you have a very small hole, there is a small hole will pack up at a lower speed, no matter what the viscosity is, and a bigger hole will pack up at a higher speed, no matter what the viscosity is. Difference is when the viscosity is low and there is not this packing up motion, the larger hole will obviously be softer, so you're going to have less of those holes. And even then, you're usually in a situation where the lower hole size needs more holes and higher hole size need less holes. But most of the time, you do tune these two to work on the similar shock oil. So let's say you have 8-hole 1.2 or a 6-hole 1.3. Both work on the, let's say, 600 CST oil. Difference between these two is that when you go up and down on the bench, usually these two are similar stiffness. But when the speed comes up, the 1.2, the 8-hole 1.2 will pack up faster because the hole is smaller. So you don't want bump handling where the shock just gets stuck and packs up. So you go softer on the oil. Okay. And on the 1.3, you're fine with bumps because it packs up on a very, very high speed. So you're fine with the little bumps. And this is sort of the difference in the end, that you can run you balance out the shock handling on the bump handling oftentimes. So more holes, smaller holes, you make it so that it goes around the jumps and the bumps well, and then it's softer initially. And then the other way around, you tune it so that it goes around the jumps and the bumps well, but it's still stiffer initially because you're going to need to have it stiffer initially to be the same at the level of the bumps. So it's not inherent that smaller holes work in a certain way, but usually when you have smaller holes, you're going to have to compromise on things that results in being more what's the word I'm looking for? It results in a way where it's more free initially. So more holes often really results in a car that has more, and smaller hole results in a car that is more aggressive, more responsive, and more drivable. Now, I listened to the JQ's live on touring cars a few days back. What they did was they did not increase the hole size. They kept the high hole size, and they at the same time increased the hole amount. And to balance that change, they went to a stiffer oil. So here, the difference is a bit different because you're decreasing the pack of the piston, but you're not really changing the point that much, like when does it pack up? You are just slowing everything down by the stiffer oil. I don't know like how to explain this more simple, because I think this was very chaotic explanation.
I think
but
you've
that's
bored me to death about it
Yeah.
enough.
But
We're not
it's
going to talk about fucking oil right now.
yeah. The
You said
main
this is
difference
pretty
is that
simple. And you went on for 5 minutes.
yeah, but
I
the
went into
main
complete
difference
blank
is
space just now. Like,
yeah. The main difference is that when you change one thing, you typically change the other thing, and then there's a lot of differences.
because we have a lot of questions to try and get through. We're not going to get through near any
Yeah.
of them. So when you do 10-minute answers like that, we're not going to get there. All right, Maxie? All right. But good question by Pajamas. Travis McHenry. I'm going to run through this. I have a very simple answer for this. I like this, but I see a twist to it. Travis McHenry. Will we ever see a Loretta Lynn style championship in RC? So it's an amateur championship. I would love to see these manufacturers step up and start a series that gives back to the non-chassis drivers and the tracks that host them. Pros are there solely for their support. Their chassis platform have 4 or 5 qualifying events on each coast and take the top 20 from each race and send them to a championship event somewhere in neutral. Dude, go ahead, plan it. That's all I got to say to you. I would take it better. I would love to see an RC race at Loretta Lynn with the pro guys putting on a show. I like all these concepts, but I'll tell you what. We talked about this earlier. Look, do you work 4 days? Do you work 4 weekends a row as a worker? Some people do, right? Well, remember when these guys come to the track, that's their job, right? They have to have a weekend off for their family at some point, you know? So that's fine. I get it. You want to support the races. You want pros to do things. I don't think it's things like this. I think we need to get the pro guys intermingling with people more, or set up the pro guys where people can meet them without a problem and then have questions. Because generally these pro guys are pretty helpful if you go up and ask them. But I like this idea of having a whole series and all that stuff, but I just don't think it's feasible. You can't even get the dates to have a series. Like you could say, Lefty, let's have an 8-scale series right now. And I'll be like, all right, the first thing you're going to do is give me the dates. Give me 4 race dates that we can have, that we know every pro driver in the USA can make. Listen, the pro driver is important. So Travis, while I do like your idea, and I think it's great, I think that's an idea that's easily more done with a pro class than the getting everybody to go. Then you got to get everybody to agree with it. We don't need more races right now in the USA. We just talked about how there are too many races back to back to back. So throw in qualifying races and stuff like that. And you know what? The person that does that is going to lose money on that for many years before they make money. So that's the problem too. You gotta get in there. You cannot lose money on stuff like that. The manufacturers can't lose money. The race promoters can't lose money. The place where you're gonna put the track can't lose money. So once you come up, I would say to anybody that has ideas like that, they should come up with a business plan, pick the dates, go talk to the racers, go talk to all the manufacturers, see how they'll be involved, how much they can support. Go see the drivers, go talk to them, see who can make it. And then we'll see how hard it is, because it's not easy. It's not easy to get these guys to come to your races because, number one, they got to get paid because it's their job. Number two, they're fucking busy every weekend. And when they ain't busy, they're spending some time doing what most normal people do on their weekends off, which is in RC racing. So great idea. We're in an industry that's just too small to support it. I don't know what you think about that, Max.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much everything you said. Like RCGP, they tried to do stuff that was like done in the way of how professional motorsports does it, and like it took so long for brands to.
If the goal is to get more support from these drivers at races that you attend, then I think we should have more meet and greets and all that stuff at these races than anything.
Yeah.
You know, and you know what? Us as RC racers, we're in our own world, and a lot of us are very, what's the word? Introverted. So we're scared to go up and talk to these guys. Where we shouldn't. We should go up and talk to them. Yes, because the judges pay the money, but those guys are there to race and win. That's their job. Imagine that's your job. You gotta just remember it like that. But as for the idea of I just don't foresee it. It's too much money, too much planning, and too much sacrifice for any one person to do that. Chris Tradu, why do people rely so heavily on setup sheets used by the pros? Aren't these only relevant to folks who can match the driving style of said pros setup sheet? What aspect of a setup sheet should a racer focus on if the car and conditions match where the sheet is from? That's a good question.
Yeah. Oh, just for me? You just
Oh,
you
it's for you. Do you want me to read it again?
No, 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 no. You just stopped so abruptly. I was surprised. But okay. Number one thing, there's two things. Number one thing is no one drives like a pro, and these pros usually have a very specific driving style they use and very specific way they want their cars that they have learned that fit this driving style. And number two is a lot of these pros don't really know what they're doing. They just know what they want. Some don't even know what they want. So there's that. Um, so the pro setup sheets, a lot of the times, it's that. Okay, there's actually a third thing that I forgot to mention that most of the time these races are not comparable to what most people run at their local tracks. So the conditions are very different. But let's put that on the side for a while. So one setup sheet from a pro racer oftentimes is that they practice somewhere, they find something that suits them. They go as far with that as they can. They know that they want the arm low. Like that's they found that they have always liked the arm low, and they use that. And it doesn't matter if the car is a bit inconsistent or it works, not regular way. Like it's not predictable. As long as the things that the pro driver can control and wants to control are predictable. So they want some things that they can expect to work in a way they like, and then the rest of it is like they can work around it. They can correct it. They know how to correct it or whatever. Usually, these type of cars are very unbalanced to drive, and they're fast, but they're fast because the pro driver knows how to drive a car like that fast. And this is usually a result of not really knowing the complete setup and how everything affects everything. And then the car is not balanced. And for a regular driver, the issue is that they make a lot of mistakes. Like regular RC racer, they brake too late, they go on power too early, they steer too much, then steer too little, and they don't really guide the car the same way as a pro does. And that is the main thing, that oftentimes the most balanced setup is not the fastest initially. You have to fine tune it. And you can clearly see that from anything Joseph does with invisible speed, that one shim here, one shim there, and the car is like 2/10 faster. And that's the thing, that when you're running a car on the right setup window, it reacts very strongly to small changes. So this is the most logical car to drive, but also it's affected most by the setup changes. The pros usually shoot for a setup that is fast but difficult to drive, and it's not balanced. It doesn't make any sense in a driving way, but they choose what things then they can control themselves. So let's say like Ronafalk, he doesn't mind if the rear end folds because he's really good at predicting when it folds. So he can drive the rear end really like soft and squirmy, because that way he can get rotation. He needs the car to rotate to be fast, and he does anything he needs to make that happen. But then the rear end is really easy to fold, and you spin really easily if it's bumpy and so on. But he's really good at controlling that. A lot of the other guys aren't, you know? And that is the sort of trade-off. Ongaro, for example, he's really good with driving on power. He keeps the control on power. So he can drive an incredibly low amount of toe-in. The front end is really dull on the car, so he can control it on the way in. But on the way out, a regular RC driver is not gonna go straight with a car like that. He's gonna be fishtailing all over the place because it's so slippery, it's so stiff.
You don't
But these
basically
guys,
you just don't have the skills that they do, so you can't drive it.
basically so, yeah, basically so. But the thing is that even they would probably benefit from a balanced setup, but due to the lack of setup knowledge, they are not able to achieve that.
You've heard that many times, many times.
But for a general person, unless you look at a setup sheet from every single associated guy and it looks the same, or every single Kyosho guy or whatever brand, you look a setup sheet for every single pro guy they have and it's similar, then maybe, then you can probably follow it. But unless that's the case, probably as good as you're going to be as comfortable with the standard sheet of that comes with the kit.
Yeah, there we go. We're going to try and get through these a little faster because Max is getting crazy with them. But good question. Very good question. Very long, good answer. Stephen Forward, what's the best way to approach J Concepts or A-Main or someone of that similar caliber to sponsor an event? We've got a few events here in Hunter Valley, Australia that could use some boosting. Well, I would say get a promotion, a sponsorship package, resume done or one paper and email them. Realize that these companies are... realize that a lot of these companies make their budget for the year at the end of the year, and that's when you should be reaching out to them. I'm sure they have some allocations for things throughout the year, but if you're not going to give them proper promotion, you got to sell them why they should sponsor your event, right? Why should they sponsor your event? It's not that they just should sponsor it. There are some races that they should sponsor. Why should they sponsor yours? So get it all together, a nice one paper. We have to do the same thing. Yeah, it takes time. I would put together one paper, one page as we call it. We did one. Max worked on it. Will made it all out for us. And you got to go around and approach these companies and show them what, in return for money or product that they send, what they'll get in return. You know, will they get coverage? Will they get this? Will they get that? So a lot of these companies ask for this because I know J Concepts and A-Main sponsor quite a lot of stuff. All right. Next after this is Eric Quartermouse. 1 second. So Eric asks about hop-ups. Now I think this has to be broken down. I'm sorry, guys. You probably hear my air purifier kicking in the background. This has to be broken down to hop-ups and another word we'll use. We don't call them hop-ups no more. We should be calling them tuning accessories. Really. So hop-ups are basically to make the car better, stronger. You know, I would say a hop-up is like, back in the day for me, was an aluminum chassis brace. Little did we know he was taken away from performance of the car. Aluminum hubs might be a hop-up. Aluminum steering rack on 10 scale is a hop-up. You know, I think an aluminum steering rack is fundamentally makes a car better. So it's a hop-up. So let's answer this question. He goes, with all the hop-ups out there available for cars these days, titanium screws, axles, shortened chassis, etc. Excuse me. At what point does it become too much? Seems like you can buy every hop-up and just build a car of little to nothing stock on it. Well, I think he's wrong there. I think he's gotten hop-ups and tuning accessories, tuning options. That's a better word for it. Tuning options. Misunderstood. So, like I said, if I'd say, hey, on that 10 scale car, you need to put an aluminum belt crank on it or steering system because it makes it better, it's less sloppy, and they have that just for that, that is a hop up. Yes, it's not a tuning option, it's a hop up. It makes the car better. But those aluminum hubs, you may not need them because the plastic hubs that are on there are strong, but the aluminum hubs offers more tuning options. Do you get what I'm saying here? So we have to make a distinction between those two. And I think what this listener or this person is asking is about that. Like, remember when Fioroni made everything Fioroni for the Kyosho back in the day? You just had to have a Fioroni car. Were there's hop-ups or just bling parts? But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. My Techno MT410, which is not a race car, which is that car right behind Beast, it's a completely stock car. And it's handled good. It's held up good. So Obviously, if there's some parts that need to be beefed up or aluminum is better, you go for it. Remember back in the day when we thought aluminum was the bee's knees? Well, back in my day, we want aluminum arms and we want this. Well, something else breaks. There's give and take with everything. So I think he's getting a little bit confused with tuning options and hop-up parts. I think cars nowadays need very little hop-up parts, but they offer so many tuning options.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I somewhat agree with you, but I somewhat disagree because, like, the what is it? Raw speed, for example, they make now everything out of aluminum, even though it's not really necessary. Um, and then there's like where they associated the B7,
Yeah, you're
especially.
talking about wheel speed. Wheel speed.
No, but raw speed too. They made like the front bulkhead for
Oh,
associated. They
okay,
made it
okay,
like,
okay, okay.
yeah, yeah. Oh, no, it's not raw. What is it? R1.
R1,
R-Works.
who I heard might be coming up with a car themselves.
Yeah, sorry. Raw speed is for the tires. Yeah, I mean R1. And yeah, wheel speed does that too, but at least wheel speed they kind of changed the whole concept of it at the same time. But I mean there are. I think J Concepts is the one who does the most, just like for bling. Like they do those arm mounts, shock collars and stuff like that, and it's just for bling. I mean they do parts that do improve performance as well. So um, like the turnbuckles, they're the titanium turnbuckles, they're lighter, and so on. Um, there's a lot of brands who do all kinds of stuff, and usually they do both. They do actual performance increasing parts and then not performance increasing parts. In my opinion, what I would like to see is actually people making more, like a wider scale. Like you can get a shock tower or an arm mount to any car from any brand at this point. But like you really can't build a whole car with hop ups. Like a lot of people don't make plastic parts at all, or even replacement part for the plastic parts. Um, like A arms, you cannot build an associated with A arm. So the soul of the car these days, a lot of the times, is the plastic parts. Like that is the one that the manufacturer makes because the quantity is much higher. And then the machine stuff or printed stuff, that's the ones that uh are added on as hop ups. I don't know. To me, I haven't seen any difference in the market. I think, to be honest, there probably was more before. Like less brands, but more parts. Now it's more brands, but less parts. So it's more high volume parts than less low volume parts. And I would like to see more innovation there for sure. There's a lot of like
I
arm
think
mount that is exactly the same as stock, but looks different.
can I interject here real quick, and then I want us to
Yeah.
move on. I think my bigger question is, when are we going to get 3D printed? When is the average person going to get a 3D printed machine that you can print out your own car and it's feasible to use and work and race with and not break immediately? That would be
Well, I
a
mean,
better
we have the club race hero. I think that's pretty good and established, at least in the pan car. They are coming out with other stuff too, but I think the club race hero is like the first example of that. But I think I don't see that becoming a thing ever really, like because the issue with that is it's very much down to the guy who prints it on what it will be. So the bigger question is, when will 3D printing technology become so good that these hop up brands, let's say R1 or well, J Concepts, they do a lot of the stuff like this. Wheel Speed, some of these guys. When will 3D printing become so good that they can actually make like A arms and well, they do machine gearboxes these days, but like 3D printing gearboxes that people actually use. I think that is the bigger question here. Because at that point, I would agree with the comment here that there is a scenario where there's no point anymore making your own car. It's like everyone, like touring cars now, there's not a single like injection molded part on most of these cars. So it's like it takes no initial investment to make a touring car at this point. The only reason holding back like 10 scale and 8 scale is that you have to make quite a bit of initial investment into molds. If that goes away, what happens? I don't know. It's interesting for sure.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We're going to skip through a few of these questions because some of them we've kind of talked about quite a lot. Marco Steinbuchel wants to know, Max Mott, thoughts on tuning roll center via shims and inserts on the lower arm mount versus just shims on the upper arms, like most people do. Mainly, I think I noticed on 10 scale at 10 scale events. So I'm assuming it's 10 scale tuning.
Yeah, so this goes actually quite hand in hand with what I said before about the outer end, so the hub side thing. So because the axle is closer to the lower arm, a higher amount of force goes through the lower arm as well. Because like, you know, when the tire moves on the way, like when the tire goes to a corner, your tires go, it goes on the outside tire, it pushes from the lower end, and it pushes from the axle. So if the tire bends, it's gonna have more, or let's say, the lower arm is going to have less leverage on the axle, and the upper arm going to have more leverage on the axle. So more of that force is going to be transferred through the lower arm. Now, because of this, when you raise or lower the lower arm, the effect on the handling of the car is going to be bigger. The way it resists roll or doesn't resist roll, that's going to be more dominated by the lower arm. The upper arm, in most scenarios, because we run the upper arm really high on the hub and we run the lower arm really close to the axle, in a lot of scenarios, if you tune the upper arm, you can change the roll center a lot, but it's not going to really affect your handling as drastically. In touring cars, it's the other way because they're actually quite close to the center of the hub, so it's different. But in 10 scale and 8 scale off road, it's this sort of rule applies much more strictly. So with the upper arm, you often control just the static roll center, not necessarily how the roll center moves, and you control less on how the forces affect the car. And the sort of main principle of the upper arm in often scenarios is jacking instead of like the roll center effect it has specifically. So I think that's sort of the difference with the upper arm or upper link in 10 scale. Adding shims there, you're going to be able to fine tune how the car handles under roll. Let's say jacking is one effect and that you can fine tune. And you can sort of fine tune the initial reaction because the static roll center is able to be adjusted. And then the lower arm is kind of the baseline you're working with. So like if you move the upper arm 1 millimeter, it's going to have a smaller change than moving the lower arm 1 millimeter. And I think that is sort of the big difference between the two. And changing it throughout the day, to be honest, like both can be changed throughout the day. But I mean, usually if your setup is in the window, you fine tune it. And that's not like, then you do not really touch the lower arm, you touch the upper arm. That's sort of my kind of idea of it. And especially 10 scale, because you can tune it with shims, you can really, really fine tune it. And even a 0.5 millimeter can make a noticeable difference. And you can find the sort of balance on some, especially on some specific corners. So that's sort of the difference between it. Lower arm controls the major handling of the car, the roll handling, and then the upper arm controls the fine tuning of the handling of the car on the roll. And that's not like a scenario always, but it especially applies to 10 scale and 8 scale, the current cars we have on the market, because the axle is quite low relative to that.
All right.
The hinge pin.
Another 5-minute answer. Thank you, Max. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna regret this next question by Adam Cristo. He goes, I want to hear Max geek out about these SOTA dampers. No, I haven't heard about this either, so I want to hear. You're gonna have to give us some more time than usual, Lefty. I just gave you 10 minutes. Look, dude. This better be interesting. All right, here we go. Okay, just go. Look, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. Well, this is a render of the damper. So the idea of this SOTA, so it's SOTA RC products, comes from state of the art RC products. It's an Australian guy who's built this. He's been testing with some other Australians, and yeah, that's basically the background of this. Idea is that instead of having a round piston, you have this almost round piston. I guess you call this a semicircle or something. And then you have a flat end. Now, this is achieved by inserting this tube inside your regular shock. So you insert this tube to the regular shock. It's round on the one end, and then the one end is flat, similar to the piston. Now, what the flat end does is you have these vents here. Also in the bottom, you have a vent. When the piston moves up, it allows fluid to be passed from this vent, and then naturally the fluid would like to move upwards or downwards, or if the piston is moving up, most likely the fluid would like to go up. Or actually, other way around, the fluid would like to go down because there will be pressure building up on the top of the shock. So, you have 3 of these inserts. These will be snug to the shock body, these inserts, and then you will have this sort of gap in the middle. The purple insert would have the biggest gap, the blue insert will have the medium-sized gap, and the red insert will have the least or the smallest gap. So the piston goes up, fluid will move from the vent, and it will try to, because in the bottom there will be an under pressure, so it wants to move from here downwards below the piston. The bigger the gap is, the less damping will happen across this gap. And it will be then softer, just like adding an extra hole to the piston. Then when you move the piston upwards, let's say it's in this range, you move here, the fluid will come from these holes and it will try to move again down. And the bigger the gap, the softer, the smaller the gap, the harder the damping is. So the idea here is you can control the damping relative to the suspension stroke. And you can tune it by these little inserts. The piston itself, it effectively only has one hole, one like damping hole, and then more rebound holes. I'll go talk about that a bit more later. So majority of the damping will be controlled by these inserts. And as I said, like you will allow the fluid here to move out of the hole and then naturally downwards through the gap, which will induce damping because there will be a higher pressure zone above the piston when it moves in, and then a vice versa the other way around. So when the piston moves down, the higher pressure zone will be here. The fluid will want to go from the bottom hole upwards, and then when it moves in, it goes to the top hole to the bottom. That's basically how it works. And then with these inserts, you control how much damping you want at each point of the suspension. The principle is the same. You have a gap here, and the fluid will pack up here or not pack up here, depending on the speed, the movement of the damping. So it relative to speed, this suspension works exactly the same as the current one, but it's different relative to position. And it's also different relative to direction, similar to the VRP and the MIP pistons. Let me bring up the other picture. Yeah, there. Okay. This is the piston. So you have this piston and then you add this shim on top. And so you effectively have only one hole that works as the damping side of it, like I don't know, rebound side of it. So when the shaft gets pushed in, there's only this hole and then these gaps here. You can see here there's a different size gap in each of these. It looks different. I don't know how noticeable it is, but they look different. But then on the rebound, you have these 3 holes here, and this shim is allowed to flex. So on rebound, you have faster rebound, less damping on the rebound. It comes with these set screws, so you can shut a few of these holes down. And that's sort of the way. Actually, now that I think about it, I think this hole is actually for this other screw. So there will be no damping other than these holes. And then on the rebound, you tune the amount of rebound by shutting these holes with the smaller set screws. And I believe, actually, now that I think about it, these were used here in this hole. So the only way the fluid moves is through these. What else? Basically, the difference between this and the current shocks is that you can tune the handling of the shock relative to the position of the shock. And you can also tune how much damping you have by adjusting these. Issue here is that, if I understand this correctly, you only have 3 different choices for damping. So you have a lot of damping, less damping, or more damping. Whereas you compare to holes on your pistons, you can choose from 6 hole, 7 hole, 8 hole, all kinds of sizes, half millimeter size. So there's a much more adjustability.
So this is actually very innovative. I like this.
It is innovative, yes, for sure.
So for me, I'm an idiot. So basically, piston goes up. So piston comes up, comes out of that top hole, goes down, flowing through these holes, and goes into. Now, how would it be the first hole? There's fluid. All the fluid comes out at the same time, because as the piston goes through stroke, it pushes the fluid out, and then those little blue and red plastic things control the flow of the oil to the next hole, or to the bottom of the stroke, bottom of the shock body. So it basically the oil's being pushed out and forced out of those vents as it goes up.
Yeah.
And the oil comes back down. I tell you what, I would get completely lost in setup on that. I think that's cool as fuck, but that is a lot. What is all right, I put this as simple as fucking possible. What is the benefit of running this?
The benefit of running this is, a lot of the times when we run our cars, we want them to be very flat. We want them to be at the, like, you don't want the tires to, the stroke to be all the way out. You don't want the car to move up and down a lot, because that's going to make you slower. The benefit of this would be that you can make the suspension harder when it's on compression and softer when it's on, like, upwards travel. So then it would get back to the center. So it always wants to go to the center, back to the center. And that's sort of the idea here. So you remember before when someone asked me about the pistons, and I said that if you have a lot of small holes, you can run it softer and it will still handle well in bumps, or in jumps and, like, bumps. And then a stiffer one, or less holes that are bigger, you're going to have to run a stiffer oil so it still handles when it jumps and bumps. Well, this is kind of like that, but you don't change it according to speed, you change it according to the position and speed. Okay, so a regular piston, it doesn't matter what point of the stroke is, it will handle the same way. Now it's like if the tires are all the way out, you can make it so that it's softer, and if the suspension is all the way in, you can make that it's stiffer. So it's position sensitive. That's what they use the term. It's still not speed sensitive, which I think would be what we actually need. But
So you mean the speed of the piston going up and down?
yeah. So
that's where the pack and all that stuff comes in, because there's when you get over those quick jumps, that piston's going blah, 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 like that, and that's where the speed comes in and the pack and all that stuff. But dude, think about how long it took to figure this out. Like these guys sat off and thought about this for quite some time.
Oh yeah, I don't know how long he said, but he said a few years. I think he's been working on this. And he's gonna give. I think they have it for S-Works, Kyosho, Techno, and some other brand associated. So this guy, I think the goal was to bring out these to every single manufacturer. And the best thing about this is you can actually put it in the original shock body. So
you know what would be best for this guy? If he came on the No Name RC podcast and did a product showcase on that.
Yeah, because clearly I didn't fully understand what it was. Because
that would be perfect for you and him to geek out for 30 minutes on that stuff.
Yeah.
Perfect. So whoever's the owner of this, come hit us up. We'll figure it out. That's interesting stuff, and it's been a long time since something's piqued my interest quite a lot. All right. We did have a couple of questions. I get these guys are from Finland about 2-gear and 4-gear diffs.
Oh, okay.
This is Ari. We had Essa Melina. Who?
Millima.
That's easy. He wants to know about some drinking game you and Will have. To be honest, because you guys said that quite a lot. And on a serious note, he says Tebow tested 3 gears on 1/8 scale, liked it. And we see a lot of people play at 4 and 2 gears. I'm assuming you mean taking the 2 planetary gears out of the diff. I know this has been going on for years. Chris Morale loves this.
Okay, so here's the theory. So, big teeth in the internal gears of the diff. Big teeth mean that when the teeth moves, it's going to have to displace more oil. Also, big teeth mean that the sort of movement across the other gears is going to be going with more surface area. So it's less sort of smooth, there's more friction in there. Small teeth, on the other hand, it's the opposite. It has to displace less oil, and it doesn't have as much friction. Okay, now think of it as you remove 2 gears from the equation. You are going to make it again. It's going to have to displace less oil, so you're going to have to use harder oil or stiffer oil, and it has more it has less friction with between the gears, so it's going to be smoother. It's not going to grip up as much. So think about it this way: when power comes into the differential, it's trying to move the gears, and when the gears start moving and they have friction between them, it's going to initially, at the very least, initially have more friction against the gears between each other. The bigger the gears, the more friction, naturally. And this initial movement, when you push the throttle, means that the diff will feel more like it's locked. And then the other end of the spectrum is you have smaller teeth, less of those gears. Again, less friction. And when you go in power, it's going to allow to work as a differential more. It's going to be more free. So you can do it sort of 2 ways. You can have smaller gears with smaller teeth, and you can have it very smooth, and it doesn't displace a lot of oil. This means that you're gonna have a very open feeling diff in general, and it won't be prone to lock up when you go on power as easily, and it will always act like a free differential. But you can sort of balance the stiffness of the diff by compensating with the stiffer oil. Now, the other way about this is you have big teeth gears with big teeth, and you just have two of them. They still don't have to displace as much oil, maybe, as the 4-gear small teeth versions. So you can theoretically run a similar style oil, but now you still have some sort of friction here. Estimating how much this friction is, I don't know. It's hard to say, but I would assume it could be still more than the very small teeth gear, but definitely less than the 4 big teeth gear. So this is a way you can play around with how locked up the diff is on the initial push of the throttle. Because like when you hold the other tire and press throttle, it initially grabs very hard your hand, but then it just rolls and feels like nothing. You know that feeling? So the initial movement, the bigger the gears you have, the initial movement will be more drastic, and you will feel like more like a lock deck. Smaller gears, the opposite. Less gears, same thing. And the difference between small gears and big gears is also the fact that you have to displace less oil. Similar things happen with the amount of gears, but I do think there's some sort of friction difference there too, which obviously I cannot do. About 3 gears, I don't really understand why you would do that, because that will mean that the diff is not balanced. So one side of the diff is heavier than the other. So
I think he means 3 gears,
Right.
two. I think it's meaning planetary gear and 2 sun gear, 2 planetary gears, which would be 4 gears. I haven't heard anybody playing with 3 gears either. It's either 2
Tebow apparently ran it.
3
I've heard.
gears?
Yeah, I don't know why you do that, but
Anyway, all right. We've talked about this quite a lot. I can't see 3 gears working though for some reason. I just can't see it working. All right. Well, pretty good. We're gonna move on. Wade Collinson says, "What's the latest with TLR? Where are the new rigs?" No idea. Ask Hunter King. But this is a good question. Will the 4S block packs disappear eventually? Will saddle be the norm in 1/8 scale? This is a good conversation for you because
Yeah.
you're a big proponent of the saddle packs and shorties at that.
yeah, before actually, like, there was a time where I was like, yeah, the saddle ain't it, but I tried it myself, and I think it is the thing to run. There's really no. It's cheaper to get saddle packs. The saddle packs are more established. They're better. You can run the same pack in your 10 scale and 8 scale stuff. And the car handles better. So I don't think there's any reason to stay with the block packs. I think the future is that everyone will go to saddle. Kind of like 10 scale, before we had all kind of
Mm-hmm.
different things, and then everyone settled on the shorties.
Okay, I like that answer. Brandon Vanderwater, does Ogden still race? I don't know what's going on with Ogden. He hasn't raced in quite some time. Ben Yarno wants to know, how do you keep a club alive? We have an ongoing situation here in Australia. I would say talk to everybody in the club first, not her. Some things are gonna do. I would go talk to everybody in the club about it and have a meeting. That's like sometimes areas have too many tracks and not enough races to support them. Something's gonna fail. One has to go. So hopefully it's not your club. Hopefully you guys got it straightened out. Clubs are hard things. There's lots of opinions and everyone wants their opinions heard. That's the problem with clubs.
But I think the biggest thing is like you have to have a lot of openness. Like everyone it has to be very transparent, and then you have to have a clear goal of what you want to do. You want to make money by making races there, club races. You want to have, very good like practice days there. You have to have some sort of plan to make it viable.
Next question. I know what your answer is going to be. Mick Willie wants to know, since 8 scale nitro truck is declining, why don't we replace 8 scale EP trucks instead at the big competitions? I think so. This guy's European, maybe is He is English. In America, E-Truggy is bigger than Nitro truck. And should there be a new 4-wheel drive short course class where you can run 8 scale gear and on 4S? I think short course 4-wheel drive is just where it's going to be. It doesn't matter if you can run 4S. I think it's better on 2S because if there's things to run on 4S, they will be uncontrollable. I don't think the problem with short course is the battery size. So, well, the S, I think it's just had its turn. It's had its turn. Still a good class, still fun class. Darnell DeBrule, I know you guys rank drivers, but have you ever considered ranking manufacturers like F1 does? We might have done that. Because at FTC, Techno was a winner by a lot, partly because they had manufacturer had little manufacturers had little representation, but also because there's a notable difference in performance. Well, that's the problem with all these stuff. You got to pick races where we know all these guys are going to go, and there's a certain amount of races, the same races we did for the pro side of the NNRC Cup. But we're not doing the NNRC Cup this year. It's just not doing it. I decided not to do it. Somebody else take it and do it seriously. Or if there's somebody wants to sponsor it, we'll do it. But I'm not doing it this year. It's just a lot of work for very little. I just wanted to do it. Tav Huber, I want more info on the new LOSI program. Contact them. They're not called LOSI anymore. They're called TLR, so we can't help you there. Doesn't seem like much is going on.
Yeah, they ran a new tool drive buggy at the end of last year, and
which I think Hunter King has now. So
Hunter King has it.
He's top TLR driver now. Yeah,
okay.
Top driver. He also says we need more heads up racing in RC2. Too much qualifying. I'm fine with 1 round of qualifying. Then we need to do a 2 moto format like motocross. Yeah, I like that. I like the 2 moto.
Can I rant about this a bit?
If you do it in 1 minute, yeah, of course you can.
Yeah. Okay. Why the fuck do we still need 5-minute qualifiers in RC? We do 2 rounds of seeding. We seed into our heats. Then we do 3, maybe even 4 rounds of 5-minute qualifying. And then you get a 20-minute main. What the actual fuck? Okay. Could we just have 2 or 3 rounds of seeding practice or whatever, qualifying practice, like they do in motocross, by the way? And then after that, it's 10 minutes, 3 rounds. That's still less than they do currently, like in a lot of races. Okay. 3 rounds. You get 3 rounds of practice. You can try whatever you want. Blah, blah, blah. You take top 5 laps of those 10 minutes. Top 5, not consecutive, just top 5 average. You seed people based on that into mains. And then in the main, you run a proper fucking final. For e-buggy, you either run 2 10-minute finals, which both count, or you run 3 10-minute finals, which 2 out of 3 count. And then you run a 30 to 45-minute Nitro main. And if you're crazy, you could do 20 and 20 for Nitro, and 10 and 10 for e-buggy, and all counts. Because right now, it's just stupid. Like, you have these races where people spend 3 days, and you get a 20-minute Nitro main. Like, what the actual fuck? Like, is this serious?
You know what? How about, I would like to see, let's do 10-minute qualifiers. Let's do 2 10-minute qualifiers, but hot laps. So you can come in and change tires.
It has to be like top 5.
Why can't we have hot laps for fucking once? Everybody cares about hot laps. Don't you know that's all that matters?
Sure, but hot lap is it's like you have to take too much risk. It has to be like top 3, top 5, something.
I think the problem with hot lap is that it's going to be very hard to police people cheating.
Yeah, that too. But like top 3, top 5, I think either one of those is going to be optimal.
But so anyway, this person asked for more heads up racing. Well, I really like what they did. I know we keep going back to RCGP, but I really like the RC2 format where they had regular rounds. I think it was 3 rounds of qualifying followed by a qualifying race at the end. That was fun. AMS has something similar where it has 3 rounds of qualifying. Then you have an actual race to see where you place. So you qualify for your qualifying race that then determines your overall qualifying. So there's options. There's as for double split mains, I am a fan of that. I did like the Saturday 15 lap or whatever equated to 15-minute race lap times at RCGP. They were exciting. Those quick dashes make for excitement. I really do enjoy that. And I think for the mass consumption of RC, that's a better product and better content for people, period, because it's shorter. But as an old school Nitro head, I love pit strategy. So 15 minutes allows you to have a pit. 10 minutes can allow you to, not now, because most people can get 10. So, yeah. Anyway, my rant is, yeah, I'm all for more heads-up racing and qualifying. It makes it more exciting. I like qualifying battles because I'm a geek.
Yeah, but like, who wants to watch people run around?
But for the average person that's coming into RC, qualifying is meh.
Yeah, I like it. Like, if we could just get rid of, like, when you go to any of these big races where they actually have like practice seating and qualifying and so on, like AMS. Like, imagine you just delete the whole qualifying day, and you have the seeding day is kind of the qualifying day. So you add one more round, you do the
then that qualifies you for your qualifying race. I get what you mean. It's basically what it is.
Because now at AMS, you first do seeding, which seeds you into the qualifying heat. Then you do qualifying, which seeds you into your qualifying race, and then you do qualifying race, which seeds you into the actual race. Like, just remove one step from there.
Yeah, but the point of
good.
Yeah, I get that. The point of AMS was to give people maximum runtime. So that's
sure. But what if instead of having one qualifying race, you have two qualifying races? And then you have the actual main after that.
All right. Well, we'll know. Let us know in the comments what you think about that. Let us know. Let's bring up our last question. If we didn't get to your question, we apologize. That's from Tony Schumacher. He says, "Who's going to win DNC?" We'll find out on our We'll talk about that on our DNC special. He says, new option part, the Nitro compound, the new option part for MB 2.2 of Techno on RM. So he's got some new parts. Or will it be the pillable X-ray with DP? So he thinks it's going to be RM or DP. Well, I hate to throw some. I have to throw some European. Hold on. What the Americans use? They use the Imperial versus metric. So Americans use Imperial and Europeans use metric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So the metric system's coming over to see about the Imperial system there. All right. All right. Thank you all for the questions. We're sorry if we did not get to them. There were quite a lot of questions. And we're going to move on to our, not gossip, but topic of the week, brought to you by Elite RC, Mayako, and RC Project.
RC Project is an absolute game changer, delivering next-level products to boost your performance. From precision clutch systems to ultra-durable shock caps and high-quality tools, RC Project has everything you need to dominate on the track. You can find their amazing products at Beach RC and Amen Hobbies, or head on over to their website at rcproject.it to check out their full lineup. A massive thank you to Stefano and the team at RC Project for supporting the podcast for this year. Let's show them some love. And they are, in fact, taking your game to the next level in terms of hop-ups and option parts. All right, Keenan. I do want to say, before we even start, we did this segment already 2 days ago.
Yeah, we did
this segment already 2 days ago.
I saved this shirt for 2 days. I hung it up, I wore this shirt, and I saved it for 2 days.
Yeah. We ended up talking about coverage of races, and it started off good. It was like, yeah, we need to improve things. And then it developed into just a shouting match between me and Keelan. I was of the opinion that, we don't need to film all the heats. Keelan was like, it's still valuable. And, we live to disagree on that one.
We do.
Yeah. But then Keelan messaged me of something more exciting that happened very recently. And we decided, hey, instead of having a shouting match end our podcast, first podcast would be in the you and I of this year, back at both our homes. Oh yeah, second. Let's have a more positive note to end.
And it is positive. It's very positive. And this news kind of came out after we recorded on Friday, and I guess you know, when you think of iconic tracks in racing, you think of tracks like Thunder Alley. You've had the privilege of practicing there and racing there. I've been there many times, never done a lap on it. Been there a few times, but never driven on it. It's a beautiful, beautiful track. It's very unique how it's built into the side of a hill. I remember when I first saw it many, many years ago, back in 2004, 2005. I was very impressed with it. So apparently, it was on the brink of being closed. I don't have all the details, but it basically sounds like the park wanted to get that land back because it's in a park. It's right next to tennis courts. It's right next to football fields. And there's been a few town hall meetings that have been Zoomed. The Drakes have been there. Many other racers have been there in an effort to save it. And it looks like they have saved it. And it's now going to become the Drake Raceway. So a big kudos to those two for all their hard work. Earning a track. They did earn Palm Desert. Now they're going to take off on Thunder Alley. They do have a GoFund going for this because they do need to get a whole bunch of stuff. That we will leave the link for this in this written description. I shared it on the No Name RC podcast Facebook page as well. A post from Rhonda Drake. But I'm so glad this benefits them because they're very close to this track too. They live very, very close to this track. So they're there a lot. But I'm glad somebody stepped up and saved it because people who are getting into RC will never know what it was like to go to Thunder Alley. It's been around for quite a long time, and it's good to see it be saved.
Yeah, and the location is like actually pretty decent compared to a lot of the other tracks. I think it's around a decent like neighborhood. There's you can go to the store, you can go get some food. Sure, the space isn't like the biggest, but it's good enough to hold any decent sized race. And I think the facilities itself are actually quite good, like quite solid. So yeah.
Kudos.
Really, really, really happy to see it stay, to be honest. Definitely my favorite track to visit, at least in the West Coast area that I've been to.
Absolutely. So kudos to the Drakes. We'll leave the link for the GoFund in there if you can support. They're also looking for donations of they need everything like pipe, all that type of stuff. All right. And this kind of happened Friday afternoon. And I'm glad it did happen. I've been kind of quiet on Raw lately. I don't know. I've just not been very. I know it's hard to get things turned around. So I've just been kind of quiet and watching from afar what's been going on with Raw. This caught me completely by surprise. And I'm glad it did. And I'm glad they did this. I've been a big proponent of this. And that is basically that now the ENats and the ENats will be combined. So here's the statement from Raw. It says, attention racers. After listening to drivers and manufacturers for the last couple years and looking at current ENats registration, Raw in conjunction with A-Main RC Tracks have decided to cancel this year's ENats race. Racers will receive their money back by midnight Sunday. We are happy to announce that this year, Thornhill will include electric with fuel 1/8 scale off-road nationals. So basically, they'll be combined. This will be the standard moving forward. In addition, the 2026 8-scale off-road championships will be hosted by A-Main. So I know some people got confused with this because it reads like it says it's the world is going to be there, but no, they're talking about the nationals. So I had a few people message me about this. We thank Thornhill and A-Main working in partnership with Raw to provide a solution for its sponsors, the manufacturers, and especially the racers. Registration for the 2025 Raw 8-scale ENats at Thornhill will open March 18th. I think this is a good move.
We discussed this before. You was always like, just combine it. I said, don't combine it. But I do have to say that it is, I mean, it's better than what we had before. It's better than having like a 30 entry ENats that actually nobody cares about. This is better than that. But I still do think that a big issue is that they have 4 classes. Like, for sure, personally, I'm gonna only care about the buggy classes. And I've been like thinking about this, that in terms of like us doing this podcast and reporting on races and what do people actually care about. People care about Truggy and Buggy because usually that's like the OG classes in American scene. But to be honest, in Europe, like not everyone drives Truggy, so it's like, what do people actually value more? Personally, I have to say, like, I think an e-buggy win is bigger than a Truggy win and means more to these guys because it's closer to the Nitro buggy, which is obviously the premium class. Yeah, so I don't know. My take kind of is that now that there's 4 classes, if we're gonna do raw coverage, I mean, there's not gonna be time to focus on every class. Not everyone's gonna be able to follow every class. So it's gonna be that Truggy will be the biggest sort of loser in this thing. I think that's kind of my guess here. Everybody will drive everything because it's more track time. But I think 2 issues is that what I just said about, it's diluting the classes in a sense. And the other issue would be that how are you gonna cap it? Are you gonna keep the same amount of entries, which means that you're gonna essentially halve the amount of people there? Or are you gonna double the amount of entries, keep the same amount of people? What's it gonna be? That means that you're gonna have to cut from the program. That means that you're gonna start earlier and later. What is the way they're thinking that it'll go? Because like if it goes like I think it's gonna go, that they still want to keep it from Thursday to Sunday, and they want the maximum amount of entries. It's gonna be really, really long days, not a lot of track time. And the other option would maybe not be better because you're gonna have the people there. There's gonna be like 100 people instead of 200 people, and they're gonna all just drive 4 classes. So that's kind of why I'm a bit iffy on this. It's gonna take time before it comes good, but at least now it's on par with every other race in America. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Could be bad, but it, in the other sense, could be good for that people actually go to raw races, or then it could be the total opposite, that people are like, what's the difference between B&B and raw nats? Other than raw nats, you have to pay more. So I think it's a very tough thing. And I think in Europe it has worked rather well because like the Euros are really popular. But in America, it's a much tougher market out there. I don't know. What do you think? Because like obviously something had to be done. I think we all agree on that. But
Well,
what's your take
I
on
think
those what I said?
I talked to Clayton briefly about this afterwards. They don't really they don't know how they're going to do it yet. There is going to be a cap. They're going to raise the cap. They're probably going to put a cap on each class. Most people are at a nationals on Tuesday at the latest anyway, because the Wednesday is like a track practice day. They're also flirting with doing it maybe like DNC style, such and such, maybe electric classes this day, nitro classes the next day, which I think is the best thing to do. And I don't think it's going to affect the runtime or the schedule much. I mean, remember Thornhill is also indoors, so they can run a little later. And when I mean later, maybe 9:00. You know, that's you don't got to worry about weather. You got to worry about getting rained on and stuff like that. But something had to be done because the ENats was just getting tossed around. It's not been getting a lot of entries to it. It's just not as popular. Now I know of in Europe, the E-Euros sells out 149, 145 entries. People, right? One class. Things are different over there. Over here, I think I just think it's a good move. I think now they need to not have a 10 scale carpet nats and a dirt nats. They need to just have a 10 scale nats and make it on carpet or dirt each year or whatever. But it's money, right? So you're going to be there for a week anyway. Run 2 classes, run it like DNC, electric classes one day, nitro classes the next day, and see what it does. You're still going to get the entries. And just it's going to take some fine tuning as well, but I'm glad they did it. And I would have to agree with you on the fact that I think an e-buggy win is much more popular than a Truggy win. And I know my hardcore Nitro Truggy guys out there are gonna hate this, but 8 scale Nitro Truggy is really starting to dwindle. It's e-Truggy, man. E-Truggy is just taking over, whereas Truggy was that secondary class, now people just like to have the ease of plug and play with Truggy and set it and forget it. So we'll see. You might be right on the whole Truggy issue at some point. But, I know the Europeans don't have a Truggy championship, and that's understandable. Truggy hasn't been around for a long time, has never really taken off there. But I will say this. In the South, Truggy is very popular. In fact, and so it is a class that's growing. We'll see what happens. I think it's good for manufacturers too. They don't have to send these guys to 2 different places. It's just so much races out there, man. And yet Raw is trying to compete. I think I'm very happy with this move. I think it's going to be good. And you can always go back to having 2 separate events at some point if it doesn't work.
Yeah, I do agree on that one. And I think, then again, I was thinking of 10 scale now, that 2 nats work for them, carpet and dirt.
They suffer from the same thing, lack of entries for one, because it's costs, right? To go to these races are a week long, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's costs, right? It's costs to go to these races, along with all the other races that are going on throughout that period. So I think the best they split them up to do something different. I think is they need to combine. They just need to have one 10 scale nationals. That is few and far between nowadays. That's my thoughts on that. We'll see how things work out with the 8 scale ENats though. And
yeah, I think when you go down to the root, the root cause is that Roar is not that respected in America.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
that's the issue, because in Europe you could be like, hey, we're holding European Championship for this class, and people will show up. It's not like people will not go and they'll go something else. Even like GT, like Airfare started holding Euros, we started having IFMA Worlds, and it's like that's what built this class. It's like it wasn't like it just somehow made its way up by itself, and then Effort stepped in. Effort was like, hey, this is a decent class, and then they put it in the schedule, and now it's a big class. But in Roar, if they wanted to do that, it wouldn't go like that. So I think that's the big issue for them, that they kind of have to follow the market and do what the market wants, instead of coming up with a solution and then trusting that it goes through.
Yeah, you are right that the average racer does not really have much respect for Roar. That's Roar's fault. Truly. And a lot of people you always hear, what do I need Roar for? And people that go to the Nitro Nats usually are the hardcore racers. It may be the Nitro Nats is in a popular area with lots of racers as well. But the ENats seems to always fall short, man. So we'll see how it goes. And they ain't waiting for next year. They're doing it this year, which is in June.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Kudos to Raw for making a decision, standing by it. Let's hope it works all out for them. It should. Let us know what you think. Should the nationals be combined? Do you like them separate? Let us know here in the comments what you think about all of that. Don't forget that sub, like, and notification button. We do have a bunch of shows coming up next week. This was just the first one of one. We are going to be recording a DNC recap. We have an interview with Juan Carlos Canas as well coming out separately. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for all the support. Let us know what you think down below. Max, anything to say before we wrap this up? Say thank you to our sponsors. Or maybe I should say thank you to our sponsors first, then let you wrap it up.
Whichever way you want. The
other day when we was doing this, you wanted it Max's way. Now we're doing it Lefty's way.
You want us to go back into coverage?
No, let's just stay right here.
Yeah. Although I do want to say one thing.
Oh, Jesus.
Earlier on in this podcast, we talked about diff gears. It has turned out that apparently there's 2 conflicting theories.
About the diffs?
Yeah, because I talked about it previously on this podcast.
Well, on this podcast, we talked about it.
Yeah, because we had a question about it, and I talked about it, and then you posted about the T-bow diff thing, and then all hell broke loose, and I've been talking about it with a few people now. Some people argue that 2 diff gears generate more friction. I saw that. I think Thibaut said that, and someone else has said that as well. Whereas I previously explained that more gears would be more friction, similar to bigger gears is more friction, and that's why, they are more prone to locking up. But then the other theory is the opposite. And now I have to say that I'm not that sure anymore which way is the correct way to think about this. I know for a fact that the oil displacement is going to favor the smaller gears and less gears in that they are softer and more free, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll bind up more or less. So I'll be on it. I already went to our LUT Primo, our university's database of studies, and I tried to find some studies of the subject. I didn't find anything that would specifically apply to RC. The general consensus with planetary gear systems is that more has more friction. More gears has more friction, but it also generates more, balance and longevity and so on. But that doesn't necessarily apply to RC car gears because the forces are really high. It's a very sudden change of force, and they are conical gears, which a lot of the studies I on first glance found we did not really take into account. So that's something to be studied. But it's weird because like I said, back in the day in Finland, everybody used them on like low to medium grip. Well, let's say medium grip, not high grip, not low grip, but like on medium grip. And then some people say that they use it especially on high grip. And but then I asked Joona, because he was the one that always been running 2 gears in Finland. I asked him about it and he's like, I don't know, I just try it and see which one's better. So yeah.
So
I
you
don't
gotta
know.
go. You have a conundrum.
I have a conundrum. I did ask Joseph and he said he wasn't sure. I don't know if he knows or has spoken about it somewhere, but just was too lazy to answer. But I don't know. It's something that I haven't specifically tried in 8 scale more than once. And the issue with this is when you try it, you never know if the oil is too thin or that the diff is not working. And my theory currently is that more gears still have more friction, but people tend to overshoot the oil when they go to less gears, which actually is better on high grip, having smoother diff with the stiffer oil. That's my theory. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, a very interesting topic. But I wanted to correct because I know someone will be commenting about that if I don't correct it. About the shocks, I probably made a mistake on those ones because I thought about all these things after the podcast because I haven't thought about this for a while. I haven't driven an RC car since last summer, so that's something I wanted to end the podcast with. I think we need, or at least I need, like a proper RC nerd session again. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm.
You need to get to the track. When is summertime there or spring?
Well, it depends. I think the first time I'm gonna be getting on track is gonna be May, but I most likely I'm completing my master's thesis over the summer. So let's see how that goes.
Well, I would
I'll
say
be racing for sure.
Less environmental activities and more RC activities. How you like that one? I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah. All right, Max, thank you for your time. I appreciate that. If you guys have any comments, questions, just leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like notification button. We're trying to get to 7,000 by July or by, middle of, May, maybe. Would be nice. We'd like to say thank you to all of the NNRC squad around the world. We can't do this without you guys, as well as the patrons and the YouTube members. A big shout out to all these companies. We have links for them in the written description, as well as some of our affiliate companies that support us. They are J Concepts, Hitec RC, Sidewinder Fuels, Latara Racing, Invisible Speed, ML Toys, Side Piece Racing, Hot Race Tires, Elite RC Productions, RC Project, Mayako, Techno RC, Beach RC, Racecraft USA, and Clinic RC. Thank you guys for your support. Nice long podcast for you. For those who like those old school long podcasts. Max, thank you for your time, and I'll see you for the DNC recap. And we're doing with Roach.
Yeah. We need to do an outfit change, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to do outfit change.